The lie left her mouth before she could stop it. I'm his wife. Sienna Brooks was 28. Black, 5'7", a defined afro blowout catching the low light of the Bakewah Casino. She served champagne to men who never learned her name. That night, her apron held $340 in tips. She owed $1,500 to a man named Victor Malone, and her mother's chemo credit had just been cut. Malone caught her in the service corridor. He pushed her against the wall. Her name tag scraped the paint. She screamed the first thing her panic invented. I'm the boss's wife. Touch me and you're dead. Then she heard it. The click of a gold lighter. Co. Taehyun stepped out of the shadows. 6'3", black Italian suit, sleeves rolled to the forearms, a koi tattoo climbing the left side of his neck, from collar to jaw. They called him the Koi. He looked at Malone. He looked at Sienna. He said 6 words. Is there a problem with my wife? Malone ran. Upstairs, in a private room above the floor, a woman in a charcoal suit slid a marriage contract across a lacquered table. Real seals, real courthouse, and a clause Sienna didn't read. But what she found 3 weeks later, hidden behind a mirror in his penthouse, changed everything. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. Sienna counted the bills a second time under the counter, because the first count could not be right. 300s, 150, 120. 30 and 5s and singles crumpled by a man who had tipped her while looking at her hips instead of her face. $340. She pressed the stack flat against the underside of the bar, folded it once, folded it again, and slid it into the inside pocket of her black apron. Her thumb stayed on the fold a second longer than it needed to, as if pressure could turn paper into more paper. Behind her, the Bakewah VIP salon still breathed. Chandeliers threw amber light across the green felt. A dealer snapped a fresh deck at the baccarat table in the far corner, the cards making the sound of tiny bones. A whale in a burgundy blazer laughed the way men laugh when they have already won back what they lost. The air smelled of expensive cologne, of aged whiskey, of the faint sweet chemical of the carpet cleaner they used on the private mezzanine every Sunday morning before the doors opened for the private clients again. Sienna kept her chin up. That was the rule she had made for herself the first week. Chin up, spine long, name tag straight. The little brass rectangle above her heart said Sienna in engraved capitals, and she had polished it that afternoon with a corner of a bar cloth because a manager once told her that a name tag with fingerprints on it says the girl behind it is tired. Tired girls got moved to the smoke lounge. The smoke lounge tipped like a church. She glanced at the clock above the cashier cage. 3:52 in the morning. 8 minutes to the shift bell. 8 minutes to walk the length of the salon. Take the service elevator down to sub-level 2. Badge out at the time clock. Change out of the tailored black dress into her jeans, and step onto the sidewalk on the far side of the block, where the taxis pretended not to see her. 8 minutes to owe someone $1,160 she did not have. She did the math again anyway. She always did the math again. $1,500 by Friday. $340 in her apron. $1,160 short. Rent on the 2nd, 72 hours after that. Elijah's school lunch card had a balance of $4.11, which she knew because she had checked it on her phone twice on her break. And her mother. Her mother. Sienna picked up a cocktail napkin and folded it into a small, tight triangle just to have something to do with her fingers. Behind her, the whale in the burgundy blazer called out for another Macallan, and she answered without turning. Right away, sir, in the voice she used for men who did not want to be looked at directly. She poured the Macallan neat, walked it over on a black lacquer tray, set it at his right hand at the exact angle Mr. Hahn, the floor captain, had taught her the first week, and stepped back 3 paces without turning her spine. The whale did not look up. He slid a folded bill across the felt without breaking eye contact with his cards. She lifted it between 2 fingers. 100. She kept her face still. 440 now. She walked back to the bar station with the tray flat against her stomach, and it was there, in the small dead space between the ice well and the register, that her phone buzzed once against her thigh through the pocket sewn into the lining of the dress. A voicemail. She knew who it was without looking. She looked anyway. Mama? Sienna glanced at the floor captain across the salon. Mr. Hahn was talking to a pit boss, his back to her. She turned her shoulder into the corner, tilted the phone under the lip of the bar so the screen would not reflect, tapped play, and pressed the speaker hard against her ear. The voicemail was 31 seconds long. Delilah's voice came out thinner than it should have. The kind of thin that made you feel the shape of the throat it had come from. "Baby, it's Mama. I don't want you to worry, but I need to tell you before you get home so it don't blindside you. Miss Wanda at CVS called this afternoon. She said the pharmacy can't extend the credit line no more on the tamoxifen, not till the balance clear. She said she real sorry, baby. She said she tried. It's the corporate side, she said. Baby, I told her I understood. I told her God's still God. Don't you cry now. You hear me? Don't you cry. Sienna, you hear me. I'm gonna take the last 2 pills tonight and Thursday, and after that we figure something. We always do. I love you. Call me when you off, not before. I know you working. I love you. Bye, baby." Sienna held the phone against her ear for 4 seconds after the message ended. Then she lowered it under the bar and locked the screen with her thumb, and she made her face do the thing it always did, which was nothing. Nothing at the mouth, nothing at the eyes, just the small habitual lift at the corner of the lip that a customer might mistake for a smile if a customer had ever bothered to look. She set the phone face down on the shelf below the register. She wiped the bar with the cloth. She wiped the same place twice. She realized she was wiping the same place twice and stopped. Behind her, the whale laughed again. Somewhere on the mezzanine, a bottle of champagne opened with the polite little pop the VIP room preferred over showmanship. The dealer at the baccarat table said, "Player wins," in a voice with no interest in the sentence. Sienna picked up her tray. She worked the last 8 minutes clean. She served a Negroni to a Malaysian tech investor at table 9. She refilled the ice bucket at table 4 without being asked. She walked past table 6 twice on purpose, because the Turkish businessman there had tipped her 100 the previous Sunday, and she wanted him to see her name tag. He did not tip her tonight. She was still 100 short of 1,250. She did the arithmetic on the way back to the bar and gave herself a small, dry mouth corner acknowledgement of the number, the way an accountant gives a nod at a red row. At 3:59, the shift bell rang once above the service door, low and polite, so quiet a customer would not notice it. She set her tray down. She untied her apron. She folded the apron with the money still inside it and pressed it flat against her stomach as she walked toward the back. Chin up, spine long, name tag straight, and she did not run. The service corridor behind the salon smelled different. Bleach, fryer oil from the staff kitchen down the hall, the perfume of the coat check girl who had gone off at 2. Sienna badged in at the punch clock, watched the little screen say "Good night, Sienna" in green letters, and turned toward the changing room. She never got there. Victor Malone was leaning against the wall between the changing room door and the fire exit, one boot flat on the concrete floor, the other cocked up against the cinder block behind him. He was chewing something, gum maybe. The corner of his mouth worked in a small circular grind. His black leather jacket was open over a dark shirt buttoned 2 down. The chain at his neck was thick and dull, the way steel gets when a man never bothers to polish anything he already owns. He saw her, and he did not straighten. He let her come to him. "Evening, sweetheart," he said. Sienna did not answer. She kept walking, because to stop was to give him the corridor. She was going to move past him toward the changing room, the way you move past a dog that has not decided yet whether to bite. She was 3 steps from the door when his boot came off the wall, slow, and slid across the concrete just enough to close the gap. She stopped. "Victor," she said his name the way she said the name of the whale, the way she said every man's name in a black dress. Level, uninterested, certain. "Friday's Friday, Sienna. I know what day it is. Then you got an envelope for me." She let a beat pass. Then she reached into the pocket of the folded apron pressed against her stomach and took out the $440, and she held it out to him between 2 fingers, the way she had held the whale's tip. Victor looked at the bills. He did not take them. "That the whole 1,005? That's $440. You're kidding me." "No." He laughed. It was a small laugh, private, the kind of laugh a man uses to give himself permission for the next thing. He pushed off the wall and took a step, and the corridor got narrower without him having moved much. She could smell him now. Cheap leather, older sweat under newer aftershave, the metal and mint of the gum. She kept her arm out. She did not step back. "Sienna." Victor. Sienna, sweetheart. We had arrangement. We still do. No, no. He shook his head slow, almost fond. Arrangement is when both parties bring the number they agreed on. You brought 440. That ain't arrangement, that's a insult. I'll have the rest Wednesday. Wednesday ain't Friday. I know what day it is, Victor. She kept the 440 extended. He looked at the bills. He looked at her hand. He looked at her face. Then he did the thing she had known he would do since the second his boot came off the wall. He reached up and closed his fingers around her wrist. Not hard, almost gentle. That was the part that always scared her more than pressure. The almost gentle part. The part where the man wanted her to know he could squeeze whenever he decided to squeeze. She did not move her arm. She did not pull. She looked at his hand on her wrist, and then she looked at his eyes, and she waited for him to be the one who talked first. Your mama on the tamoxifen still? He said. Sienna's chest did a small internal thing that did not show on her face. That's not your business. It's my business when it's why you keep coming up short. I'm just trying to understand the situation, sweetheart. I got a whole file on your situation. I know the pill. I know Miss Wanda over at the CVS on 143rd. I know your baby brother's got a game Tuesday at the school. Point guard, right? Number 11? She did not answer. Her wrist felt colder than the rest of her arm. So here's what I'm gonna do, Victor said. I'm gonna take the 440. Because I ain't a monster, and I'm gonna extend you till Monday. Monday, not Wednesday. And Monday the number ain't 1500 no more. Monday the number is 18. Interest. You understand interest, Sienna? It's what happens when you disrespect a arrangement. He was still holding her wrist. He was still not squeezing. Say you understand. She looked at his mouth. I understand. He took the 440 out of her fingers with his free hand. He did not let go of her wrist to do it. He folded the bills against his own chest with his thumb, one-handed, the practiced fold of a man who had been folding other people's money since he was 15. He slid the fold into the inside pocket of the leather jacket. Then he let go of her wrist. He stepped back. He resettled against the wall. He resumed chewing. Have a good night, Sienna. She walked past him. She did not rub her wrist. She did not look at the mark his fingers had left. She badged into the changing room, closed the door with the small, soft click of a woman who did not slam doors, walked past the row of lockers, sat down on the wooden bench in front of her own, and put her hands flat on her knees and breathed once through her nose. The changing room was empty. The other closing girls had already been and gone. The overhead fluorescent buzzed the way overhead fluorescents buzz at 4 a.m, patient, indifferent. Sienna sat with her hands flat on her knees, and she counted to 10 in her head, and then she counted to 10 again, and on the second 10 she opened her locker. Inside the locker was a canvas tote bag with her jeans and her sweater and her flat shoes. Inside the tote bag, wedged against the sole of the left sneaker, was a small brown pill bottle. She had bought it herself at a bodega in Harlem 2 weeks ago. It was empty. She kept it in the tote because on the nights when the shift got long and the tips came in slow and the math would not close, she liked to hold the empty bottle in her palm and remind herself what her mother's medicine came in. She held it now. She did not cry. Crying was not something she did at work. Crying was something she did once she was through her mother's front door and had turned the lock and put her keys in the little ceramic dish on the console, and even then only in the shower, with the water on hot, so that her mother down the hall would not hear it through the thin wall between the bathroom and the bedroom. She put the pill bottle back in the tote. She stood. She changed out of the black dress. She hung the dress on its hanger with the seams straight. She unclipped the name tag and set it carefully in the small felt tray at the top of the locker. She looked at the tag for a second longer than she needed to. Sienna. Engraved. Polished. Chin up. Spine long. Name tag straight. She put on her jeans. She put on her sweater. She traded the salon heels for the flat sneakers. She folded the black dress into the garment bag and hung it back inside the locker for the daytime laundering. She stood in front of the small mirror on the inside of the locker door, and she looked at her own face for the first time since the voicemail. Her defined afro blowout had held all night. The corners of her eyes still had the light gold shimmer the makeup artist upstairs insisted on for the VIP floor. Her mouth was set the way she said it whenever she had a decision to make, and did not want to see it in her own face yet. She closed the locker. She picked up the tote. She stepped back out into the corridor. Victor was gone. The corridor was empty. The overhead fluorescents ran their patient hum down the length of it. She turned toward the service elevator and walked, and when she got there, she did not press the button right away. Instead, she stood in front of the metal doors, and she opened her phone, and she looked at her mother's voicemail transcript on the screen, and she read the words one more time in the small blue font of the transcription app. Miss Wanda, tamoxifen, 2 pills, Thursday, God's still God. Sienna closed the app. She opened her banking app, checking, $12.08, savings, 0. She closed the banking app. She opened her contacts. She scrolled to a name near the bottom, a name she had not called in 9 months, and she looked at the number for a long second, and then she closed the contacts too without pressing anything. She pressed the elevator button. The elevator came. She got in. The doors closed. The little green LED above the door said B2, then B1, then L, and the doors opened onto the loading bay behind the casino, and the cold outside air came in like a slap she had been waiting for. She stepped out onto the loading dock. The security guard at the desk nodded at her without looking up from his crossword. She nodded back. She pushed through the exit door and down the 2 concrete steps into the alley behind the building, and the alley smelled the way alleys behind casinos smell at 4 in the morning, which is to say, wet cardboard and cigarette and old kitchen grease. At the mouth of the alley, under the streetlight, she stopped again, because she had not decided yet. She had not decided whether to call Miss Wanda in the morning and beg for 1 more week. She had not decided whether to call the name at the bottom of her contacts. She had not decided whether to go back to the manager tomorrow and ask for the double shift on Saturday, which he would give her, and which would still not close the number. She stood under the streetlight with the tote against her hip, and she did the math 1 more time, very slow, the way you do a hard problem for a child. 1160 short of Friday, which was now Monday, which was now 1800, which meant 1460 short, which meant even if Saturday's double was a good night, even if Sunday's brunch shift was a good brunch, she would still be 400 short on Monday morning, and that was before rent, and that was before Elijah's lunch card, and that was before her mother's next refill on Thursday, which was the day the last pill in her mother's little pink weekly organizer would run out. Sienna lifted her chin. She rolled her shoulders back once. She adjusted the strap of the tote on her collarbone. She started walking toward the corner, and as she walked, she made herself say the number out loud, under her breath, so that the number would be a thing she had spoken, and not just a thing she had thought. 1460, she said, to the cold, to the street, to no one. The word came out of her mouth in a small white cloud and dissolved before it reached the streetlight. She kept walking. Above her, on the 8th floor of the Bakwa building she had just left, in a private office with a black lacquer desk and a window that looked down onto the alley she was walking out of, a man she had never spoken to closed a folder with her name on the cover and set it very gently on the corner of the desk. He did not open the folder again. He did not need to. He had read it many times. He flicked a gold lighter open, closed, open, closed, watching the small blue flame answer him each time, like a dog that knew its name. Then he closed the lighter for the last time that night, and he stood, and he walked to the window, and he watched the small figure in the sweater and the jeans reach the corner of the block and turn left. Sienna did not look up. She had no reason to look up. The bus at that hour ran every 22 minutes, and she caught the one at 4:17 at the corner of the block where the streetlight flickered in a pattern she had memorized. 2 blinks, pause. 2 blinks, pause. She sat by the window in the 2nd row from the back, because the 2nd row from the back was the row where the heater vent worked. The bus was almost empty. A janitor in a green jumpsuit slept 2 seats ahead of her, with his cheek against the glass. A woman in a nurse's scrub top read a paperback with a broken spine. Sienna kept the tote on her lap and her hand on top of the tote, and her thumb resting on the outline of the empty pill bottle inside it. She rode 26 blocks. She got off at the corner of 141st and Adam Clayton. The bodega on the corner was still open, because the bodega was always open, and she went inside and bought a single banana and a container of vanilla Ensure for $2.89, because her mother could keep down Ensure on days when she could not keep down anything else. The clerk did not look up from his phone. She slid 3 ones and change across the counter. She had $8 in change left in her wallet. She walked the 3 blocks to the walk-up. The stairs to the 4th floor smelled like every stairwell in the building. Rice cooking somewhere on the second. Cigarette from under the door of 3C. Old carpet. She kept her hand on the rail and she went up the stairs the way she went up every night, one step at a time, and she paused at the third-floor landing to switch the bodega bag to her other hand, and she paused at the fourth-floor landing to make her face the face she brought through her mother's door. Not tired, not scared, not angry, just Sienna. She turned the key. She stepped inside. The apartment was dark except for the small lamp on the console table, with the ceramic dish for the keys. She dropped the keys in the dish without a sound. She hung the tote on the coat hook. She toed off the sneakers and set them under the console. She walked in her socks the 6 steps down the short hall to the second door on the right, and she stood outside the door with her hand flat against the wood and she listened. Her mother was breathing. Slow, even, the small whistle at the end of each exhale that had been there since the second round. Sienna closed her eyes and let the whistle happen twice before she opened them. She walked back down the hall to the kitchen. She put the Ensure in the fridge on the top shelf, front row, where Delilah would see it in the morning. She left the banana on the counter beside the pill organizer. The pill organizer had 7 small compartments. Thursday's compartment held 1 tamoxifen. Friday's compartment was empty. Saturday's compartment was empty. Sunday's compartment was empty. She looked at the empty compartments the way a person looks at a bill they cannot pay. Down the hall, the other bedroom door was open a crack, and inside, in the low blue light of a phone screen still on, Elijah was asleep on top of the comforter in his Moltom Cinza with the yellow school logo, one long arm thrown across his eyes, the other hand still holding the phone. His mochila esportiva was on the floor by the bed, half unzipped, a notebook slipping out. She stepped in. She took the phone gently from his fingers and set it face down on the nightstand. She pulled the edge of the comforter up over his shoulder. She looked at his mouth and the small metal glint of his aparello. 16. Point guard, number 11. She did not touch his face. If she touched his face, he might wake, and if he woke, he might ask her how the night went, and she did not want to say the number out loud in this room. She stepped back out. She pulled the door until the crack was the same crack it had been before. She went into the bathroom. She closed the door. She sat down on the closed lid of the toilet in the dark, and she put her elbows on her knees, and she put her face in her hands, and she did not cry, because she had promised the woman in the mirror at work that crying was for the shower, not the toilet. She sat like that for a long time. When she stood, she washed her face at the sink without turning on the overhead light. She patted her skin with the small hand towel her mother had folded that morning. She looked at herself in the mirror in the light from the street lamp coming through the frosted window, and she said the number to her own face, silent, mouth only. 1460 by Monday, 1800 to Victor, rent on the 2nd, refill Thursday. She left the bathroom. She went to the kitchen. She took a pen from the drawer and a post-it from the pad on the fridge, and she wrote 3 words in careful capitals, and she stuck the post-it to the inside of her wallet where only she would see it. Don't be seen. She put the wallet in the tote. She went to her own room. She lay down on top of the bed in her jeans and her sweater. She did not turn on the light. She did not set an alarm. She was scheduled at the Bakwa again on Sunday night, 8 to 4. And Sunday night at the Bakwa was the night the Korean whales came in, and the Korean whales tipped in stacks. Sunday night was her best shot. Sunday night was her only shot. She closed her eyes. Above her, 22 blocks south, on the 8th floor of a building whose logo she had worn on her chest for 11 months, a folder with her name on the cover sat closed on the corner of a black lacquer desk. The gold lighter beside it clicked open one more time in a hand she had never touched, and the small blue flame answered. Sienna did not know, yet, that she was already being watched. The car came for her at 7 in the evening on Sunday, 3 hours before her shift was supposed to start. Sienna was pouring hot water over the last of the store-brand oatmeal when the buzzer went. She had not ordered a car. She had not told anyone she was leaving early. She looked at the intercom the way a person looks at a snake that has found its way into the kitchen. Miss Brooks, downstairs, black sedan, compliments of the house. She recognized the voice from nowhere and everywhere at once. Polite, male, Korean vowels sanded down for American ears. She pressed the talk button and asked who sent it. The intercom clicked off before the answer came. Elijah leaned in the doorway with a mouthful of toothpaste. You expecting somebody? No. You want me to come down? No. She said it too fast. He raised an eyebrow around the toothbrush and went back into the bathroom. She heard him spit. She heard the pipe cough. She heard her mother turn a page in the next room, one thin, dry rustle, and for a second, she wanted to walk into that room and close the door behind her and stay there until Monday. Instead, she put on her shoes. The bag went over her shoulder. The post-it was still in the wallet. She checked the wallet twice and then a third time, and she hated that she was checking. She kissed her mother on the forehead. Delilah smelled like rosewater and the faint chemical undernote the chemo left in everything. "You look sharp for a shift," her mother said, not opening her eyes. "Shifts later. Meeting first." "Who's meeting?" "Owner wants to talk about scheduling." The lie landed clean. Delilah patted her wrist. "Don't let them run you." "No, ma'am." The stairwell smelled like fried onions and someone's sundae. She counted the steps. 4 flights, 68 steps. She had counted them 1,000 times. At the bottom, she stopped in front of the vestibule glass and looked at herself the way you look at a photograph of a stranger who has your face. The sedan was long and black and idling with its lights off. The rear door opened before she reached the curb. She did not see who opened it. Inside, the leather was warm. A folded cashmere throw sat on the seat. A bottle of water, unopened, chilled. There was no driver visible behind the smoked partition. There was only the smooth pull of a car that had decided where it was going before she got in. She rode with her hands flat on her thighs. 22 blocks. She counted those too. She counted them the way you count breaths in an MRI machine, because the alternative is thinking about the machine. When the car turned east on 47th and slid past the Bakewell loading dock without stopping, her stomach dropped. It kept going. It rounded the block and eased into a private garage she had never seen before, one level below the one where she punched in. A metal gate lowered behind them like a jaw closing. The door opened. The man waiting was not Taehyun. He wore black without variation, and there was a discreet coil of wire behind his ear. His left hand had a shine of old burned skin along the knuckle. He did not offer his name. He did not offer his arm. He stepped aside and let her walk first, which was worse. They took an elevator she had never been inside. It rose without buttons lit. The doors opened on a floor she had never seen. Carpet the color of ash. Sconces the color of honey. A single corridor. A single door at the end of it. The door opened on its own. The room was not the private salon she had pictured. It was a study. Bookshelves in dark wood. A low black lacquer table. 2 chairs. On the table sat a manila folder, a fountain pen, and a small ceramic dish with a single ice cube melting inside a finger of whiskey. Nobody was drinking it. The ice was for atmosphere. The atmosphere said, "We have time." The woman rose from the chair on the left. Sienna had seen her twice from a distance on the 8th floor. Never up close. Up close she was smaller than expected and more still. The gray 3-piece fell on her the way tailoring falls on a mannequin. No wrinkle, no give. The bob framed a face that did not need framing. The scar under the jaw was a thin white comma. Behind the acetate frames, the eyes did not move. "Ms. Brooks, please, sit." The voice was low and even and had no country in it. Sienna sat. "My name is Ha-Hyun Jang. I work for the family that owns Bakewell. I want to be direct with you because your time and mine are both worth money, and yours is currently worth less than it should be. What I'm about to offer you will fix that." Sienna did not answer. She had learned, in 11 years of tables, that silence often bought you a better second sentence than a smart first one. Ha-Hyun opened the folder. Inside was a contract. It was thick. It was printed on paper that felt like linen. The Korean characters at the top were flanked by an English translation. The seal at the bottom of the first page was red and raised. The word marriage sat on the second line in both languages. "This is a real document," Ha-Hyun said. "It has been filed with a notary who is expecting our call. The clerk at the city office has been contacted. Nothing about tonight will be theatrical. I don't do theatrical." She turned the first page. Clause 1. All outstanding debts owed by Sienna Angeline Brooks, including any obligation to Victor Malone and any successors, are extinguished as of the moment of signature. Not paid, extinguished. Mr. Malone will be informed by someone he takes seriously. She turned another page. Clause 2. Personal security. 24 hours. 2 rotations. The men will not enter your home. They will not follow your brother into a school building. They will be there, and you will not see them unless you need them, and if you need them, you will not need to look for them. A third page. Clause 3. Medical continuity for Delilah Marie Brooks. Full oncology regimen restored at Sloan tomorrow morning. Not through CVS, through a specialist your mother has not yet met, but who has been briefed. Transportation included. A second opinion in Seoul included, if she wants it. Sienna's throat closed. She said nothing. She did not want the woman across the table to see the swallow. Clause 4. Ha-Fyun said. Educational trust for Elijah Malachi Brooks. Fully funded through undergraduate at whatever institution accepts him. Independent of anything that happens to any of us. A fourth page. Clause 5. Total confidentiality. You do not discuss this arrangement with your mother, your brother, or any friend, past or present. Not to protect us, to protect them. Understood? Sienna held the pen without picking it up. She had not agreed to hold it. She could not remember taking it in her hand. There are more clauses, Ha-Eun said. They are the sort a good lawyer includes, because a bad situation might one day exist. They will not concern you unless something we cannot foresee happens. Read them at your leisure. Tonight, the ones that matter are the 4 I've read to you. Why me? She said it flat, not a question. Ha-Eun set her hands on top of the contract, one palm on each half of the open page. The nails were short and unpainted. There was a silver ring on the middle finger of the right hand, shaped like nothing. That question has an answer. That answer is not mine to give. You may ask him tonight or in a year, and he will decide when to speak. My job is to make sure that when he does speak, you are legally in a position to hear it. He's not here. He's on the roof. The way she said it made the roof sound like a room. You may sign, and he will come down. You may not sign, and a car will take you back to the block you were on. Your mother will have a difficult Wednesday. Your brother will have a difficult Tuesday. Mr. Malone will have a routine Monday. Nothing else changes. Sienna picked up the pen properly this time. The ink was heavy. The nib caught on the fine tooth of the paper. She wrote her first name and stopped. She looked up. Is there a clause about him? About Seo Tae-hyun personally? About what he expects? Ha-Eun's eyes did not move. There is a clause of cohabitation. He will not touch you. He does not need to. What he needs where you can see him and where he can see you. The rest is a conversation between 2 adults that I will not be in the room for. Sienna looked back at the paper. Cohabitation, 12 months, renewable by mutual agreement. She read the sentence twice. She read the numbers. She did not read what came after the numbers, because Ha-Eun's finger had already moved to the signature line, and Sienna's mother had 2 pills left and Wednesday was Wednesday. She wrote the rest of her name. The pen made a small dry sound at the end of the last letter, the same sound a match makes going out. Ha-Eun did not smile. She closed the folder. She rose. She walked to a small panel in the wall Sienna had not noticed and pressed something inside it. The door across the room opened on the corridor she had come in through, and the man with the burn on his hand was already there, waiting the way furniture waits. Please, Ha-Eun said. Follow Mr. Choi. The elevator to the residence is on the other side. Your things have been moved. My things. A duffel from the closet, 2 photographs. Your mother's spare rosary, in case she asks about it later. Nothing that will be missed by anyone who is not looking for it. Sienna stared at her. Nobody entered your apartment. A woman your mother trusts brought the duffel down to a car. Your mother believes you are staying with a friend from work while you recover from a flu you do not have. That story holds for 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, we will build a better one. Sienna's hand tightened around the strap of her bag. And Elijah? Practice tomorrow at 4. Ride waiting. He will be told the ride is a scholarship program if he asks. He will not ask. There was nothing to answer. The woman had thought of every corner before Sienna had thought of the room. The elevator on the other side had 1 button. It rose without a number. The doors opened on a foyer with no furniture and 1 window. The window ran floor to ceiling and gave onto the whole east side of the island. Black river, small lights. Sienna could not tell how high she was. Very high. The kind of high where the wind stops sounding like wind and starts sounding like water. He was standing in front of the glass with his back to her. The jacket of the black suit was off, folded once over the arm of a chair she had not registered when she walked in. The midnight charcoal shirt fell straight from the shoulders. The koi on the side of his neck was a shape she had seen once and thought about many nights. He did not turn when the doors opened. You signed. Not a question either. Yes. He turned then. He did it slowly, the way people turn when they know a room is watching them, and there was no one in the room but her. The Iscaro was in his hand. He did not click it. He set it on the small table beside him with a care that was almost tender. Your mother's appointment is at 8:15 tomorrow. A woman named Priya will call at 6:40 and again at 7. She will not sound like anyone's employee. She will sound like a neighbor who owes your mother a favor. Okay. Your brother's coach has been given a new phone number. That number rings a man whose only job for the next 4 hours a day is to be near your brother. If your brother trips on a stair, this man will catch him. If your brother sneezes, this man will apologize. Okay. You will call your manager tomorrow and tell her that you are taking a personal leave for 6 weeks. The pay will continue. The tag with your name on it will stay on the wall in the changing room. When you return, you will not return to the floor. You will return to the 8th. To do what? To be seen where I can see you. He said it without inflection. It should have terrified her. It did terrify her. But there was something else in the sentence that she could not name in the same breath. A small, warm thing under the flat words, and she resented it for being there. She looked past him at the window, because looking at him was harder than looking down 40 floors. What do you want? Tonight. To eat something. Your food is on the table behind you. She turned. She had not registered the table. It sat under a soft light that had not been on when she walked in. 2 settings. Soup that steamed, a small dish of something dark and glossy, rice, water in a glass, and, beside the water, a small ceramic cup of a tea she recognized from her mother's cabinet, the one they kept for the second night of any hospital visit. She did not know how he knew about the tea. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway. She sat because standing had become impossible. He sat opposite her. He did not eat first. He waited until she had touched a spoon to her mouth, and then he touched a spoon to his. He asked her nothing. He watched her eat, and there was no hunger in the watching, only a kind of accounting, and by the 3rd mouthful she understood that he had waited a long time to see her do this. The understanding did not comfort her. She set the spoon down. You've done this before. No. Someone else then. Some other girl at some other casino. No. He set his own spoon down. He looked at her across a table that was too small for the room. I have been in a great many rooms, he said. This one, tonight, is the first one that has had you in it. I am aware of how the sentence sounds. I am not asking you to believe it. I am telling you because you asked. She looked away. Your lawyer says you won't touch me. She's not wrong. Then what? Presence. Presence. You sleep in a room I can reach, and I sleep in a room I cannot leave until I know you have slept. That is enough, for now. In a year we will talk about the rest, if there is a rest. A year. She thought of the number on the page and of Hahafun's finger covering the number as she read the numbers on either side of it. 12 months. Renewable. She had not read the renewal terms because she had run out of Wednesdays. She stood. Show me the room. He rose without a sound. The hallway was long. It ended in a door of pale wood. He opened it and stepped back. The room inside was hers before she crossed the threshold. Her duffel sat at the foot of the bed. On the small table beside the bed were the 2 photographs Ha-Yun had promised. Her mother at 23 in a blue dress in front of a piano, and Elijah at 7 holding a plastic trophy from a summer league. The rosary was coiled on the tabletop between them. She did not cry. She had not cried in a bathroom last night, and she was not going to start now. The bathroom is behind that door, he said, without stepping in. The one on the left is a closet. If you need anything, press the small brass panel on the wall by the bed. If you want silence, do not press it and nothing will come. And you. 2 doors down. That is close enough for what the contract requires. It is far enough for what you require. She nodded. He did not move. Sienna. It was the first time he had said her name. He said it the way one says the name of a room in a house one has finally been allowed to enter. Yes. Whatever you were going to lose this week, you did not lose it. That is what tonight is. Anything else is a conversation for later. He closed the door behind him without another sound. She stood in the middle of the room for a full minute. Then she sat on the bed. She did not undress. She did not take off her shoes. She did not open the duffel. She put the 2 photographs face down and picked up the rosary and held it in her lap the way her mother held it when the nurses were changing an IV line. She did not pray. She did not know the words. She held it and she counted breaths. And somewhere around the 20th breath her hands stopped shaking. She did not sleep for a long time, but somewhere near dawn she did. She woke to the sound of a soft chime at exactly 6:40. On the small table beside the bed a screen had lit up, discreet as a hotel clock. A single line of text. Mother. Call received. 6:40. Priya. 22 minutes. 22 minutes was how long her mother had needed to feel like a neighbor was calling and not an employee. At 7:02 the screen updated. Mother. Transport downstairs. Confirmed. 8:15 apt. At 7:15 it said only, Daughter's ride arrived. Brother. School. No anomaly. She set the screen face down. She did not go to breakfast. She stayed in the room for the rest of the morning, and for the afternoon, and for 2 days after that. Food came to the door on a small tray at hours she did not have to guess at. She saw no one, she heard no one. Twice she heard a door 2 doors down open and close, and once she heard a low voice through a wall she could not have identified as his if she had not known it had to be. On the 4th morning she got up before the chime. She showered. She put on the clothes from the duffel. She walked into the living room. The table was set for one. Beside the plate was a small folded card. Inside the card, in a handwriting she did not know, the apartment is yours, from now until you say otherwise. Please treat it as such. There was no signature. She walked the perimeter of the room. She had not looked at the room properly on the first night. She looked now. The furniture was low and quiet, and made of things she could not name. The books on the shelves were in 3 alphabets. There was a small kitchen off to the side she had not registered. There was a hallway to the left she had not entered. She entered it. 3 doors. The first opened onto a small library with 2 chairs. The second opened onto a room with a piano and nothing else, and she stood there for a full minute before she closed the door, because the piano was the same shape as the one behind her mother in the photograph, and she was not ready to think about what that meant. The third door was locked. She was not surprised that it was locked. She was surprised that the lock was a thumbprint and not a key. She went back to the living room. She ate breakfast standing up. The days built a rhythm she had not asked for. Her mother's oncologist called on Wednesday to say the new drug was tolerating better than expected. Her brother texted her a photo of a math test with a B+ circled at the top and a heart drawn beside it. She kept the phone in the closet drawer between checks because looking at it too often made her stomach turn over in a way she could not explain. On the 7th day, he came to the apartment door and did not enter. He stood on the other side of the threshold, hand on the frame. There is a dinner tomorrow, not a public one, a small room. I need you at the table. Doing what? Sitting where I can see you, speaking when spoken to, answering to the name Brooks. That is the name. Yes, that is the name. He left. She wore the dress she had not chosen but that had appeared in her closet that afternoon. The dinner was 6 men and 2 women, none of whom she knew, none of whom asked her a personal question. She said less than 20 words. She watched his hand on the stem of a glass and did not remember the taste of what she ate. On the 18th day, she ran out of things to do in the rooms he had shown her. That was when she found it. She had been putting a book back on a shelf in the small library, a book she had picked at random and read half of because reading half of things had become how she filled the hours, and the book had not gone back where it came from. She pushed. It caught. She pulled it out. Something behind the row of books was too far forward. She reached in. Her fingers closed on the edge of a wooden panel that should not have been there. She traced its perimeter. It moved. Not much, just enough to tell her it was hinged. She pulled the row of books off the shelf, 3 at a time, and stacked them on the floor. She did not stack them neatly. Her hands had started to move faster than her thinking. The panel came away in her palm. Behind it was a shallow cavity. Inside the cavity was a folder. The folder was the same weight and grain as the one Haun had opened on the low black table 19 days ago. Sienna sat on the floor. She opened the folder in her lap. Photographs. Photographs of her. The first one was recent, 3 months ago, maybe 4, walking out of the loading dock on 47th at 4:18 in the morning, hood up. The second was older, a birthday cake in her mother's kitchen, blurred behind the glass of a window, the angle of a rooftop across the street. The third was older still. Sienna at 26, in the drugstore on 143rd, buying a thermometer. Sienna at 25, at the bus stop, reading a paperback. Sienna at 24, on the corner of 141st and Adam Clayton, laughing at something a friend had said. She turned the photographs one by one. Her hands were steady now, which frightened her more than shaking would have. At the bottom of the folder was a single sheet. A date, 2 years ago. A time, 9:11 at night. A location, the service corridor on the 4th floor of Bakewah. Under the date, in careful English handwriting, subject, Sienna Brooks. Cross-corridor route error. Visual contact 1.4 seconds. Subject observed left neck marking. No further engagement. She read the sentence 3 times. She thought about the night, 2 years ago, when she had turned the wrong corner on the 4th floor because a fire door had been propped for a smoke break and she had misread the layout in the dark. She had walked into a corridor she was not supposed to be in. A man had been standing at the far end with his back to a wall, on his phone, collar open. He had turned as she stepped in. He had looked at her without expression. She had looked at him without expression. She had turned and walked away. She had not remembered the tattoo until now. She had remembered a smudge on a neck, a shape she had not been able to name, and she had told herself it was a bruise or a birthmark. She had not thought about it again. He had. He had thought about her for 2 years. He had put a person on a corner of 141st and Adam Clayton. He had put a person outside her mother's kitchen. He had put a person at a bus stop where she had once read a paperback. He had watched a birthday cake through a window from a rooftop across the street. The word marriage on the second line of a contract 19 days ago had not been a beginning. It had been the end of a countdown. She sat on the floor of a small library with a folder in her lap, and she felt the room she had been living in for 19 days rearrange itself around her, the way furniture rearranges itself when the lights come on at the end of a dream. She did not know she was speaking until she heard her own voice. "You saw me first." The apartment did not answer. It did not have to. On the wall opposite the shelf was a small brass panel she had not pressed once in 19 days, and behind that panel, a light had begun, very softly, to blink. The brass panel kept its slow pulse for another minute, and then it stopped. Sienna stayed on the library floor with the folder open on her lap. She waited for a door to open somewhere in the apartment. No door opened. She closed the folder. She stood up. She put the folder back behind the panel of pale wood and slid the books in the exact order she had found them, spine by spine, until the shelf looked untouched. She went to the kitchen and drank a glass of water at the sink. The apartment did what the apartment always did. It hummed at a frequency she could feel in the small bones of her feet. She counted 3 breaths and picked up her phone. Priya had texted at 9:41. Mom slept through the night, ate half a piece of toast, asked when you're coming home. She wrote back, soon. She deleted soon. She wrote, tell her Tuesday. She looked at the word Tuesday for a long time before she sent it. Tuesday was the game. Tuesday was the reason she had a calendar in her head at all. She put the phone face down on the counter. Then she turned it over again and opened the thread with Elijah. The last message from him was a photo of a math test with a red B+ in the corner and 3 exclamation points he had drawn himself. She had answered with a heart. She wrote now, good luck at practice. She looked at the words. She added, I'll see the game. She sent it. Her thumb hovered over the contact at the bottom of her list. She locked the phone. She was still standing at the counter when the door to the apartment opened at the far end of the hall. Not the elevator door, the residence door. Only 2 people had a key to that door, and one of them was her. Taehyun came down the hall in his own quiet. He did not rush. He carried a small paper bag from a bakery she recognized from the corner near her mother's block, the one that made the almond twist Delilah asked for on the days she could eat something. He set the bag on the counter beside her phone. He kept his hands at the edge of the marble. You saw the folder. You saw me see it. He inclined his head half an inch. He looked at the almond twist through the paper. Ask. You've been watching me for 2 years. I have been keeping you in view. There is a difference. Explain the difference. Watching implies I would have moved sooner. She laughed once, short, no humor in it. Why didn't you? You were not in danger. Then you were. Victor. Victor was noise. Others were coming. Others. He picked up the almond twist by the paper and set it on a small plate from the shelf above her head. He did not answer with a name. He answered with a plate. She pushed the plate aside with 2 fingers. I don't want breakfast. Then don't eat it. Who is coming? Marcus Riley. The name did not mean anything to her yet. It was a sound and a set of consonants. She held it in her mouth and waited to see what it did. He wants the room I bought from your boss. He thinks buying it back through you is cheaper than buying it back through me. Through me how? Through people you love. She did not move. She looked at the paper bag from the bakery on her mother's block and understood, in a single clean beat, why he had brought it up from that specific street on that specific morning. He was showing her the map without unfolding it. You've had eyes on the block. 2. Since Sunday. Priya. Priya is a nurse. She is a nurse. That is all. And Elijah. Coach's new number rings to my line first. If it rings anywhere else, we know within a minute. She sat down on the stool at the counter. She did not want to sit down. She sat down anyway because standing had become a small kind of lie. When? Today. He moves on Tuesdays. I've moved his Tuesdays. Meaning the practice is at a different court. Meaning the driver who takes Elijah home is not the driver he thinks. Meaning if he decides to be brave, he will be brave against Ash instead of against a boy. She looked at the almond twist. She did not touch it. You should have told me. I am telling you now. You should have told me Sunday. Sunday you would have taken your brother out of school and put him on a bus to your aunt in Charlotte, and Riley would have followed the bus. She had not told him about the aunt in Charlotte. The aunt in Charlotte was the number at the bottom of her contacts. 9 months of not calling. She looked at her phone on the counter, and then at him, and did the math on what he knew, without asking how he knew it. Fine. Fine. Don't move him again without telling me first. Agreed. He left the plate. He left the bag. He walked back down the hall, and the door closed behind him, with the small hush of felt against felt. She ate the almond twist, standing at the counter, because her mother would have wanted her to eat it. She washed the plate. She put it back on the shelf above her head. She spent the afternoon in the room with the piano, because the room with the piano was the only room in the apartment where the air did not feel measured. She did not sit at the bench. She stood beside it. She rested her palm on the closed lid. The wood was warm from the sun coming through the south window at that hour, and she thought about her mother's hand at 23, in a photograph she had seen 1,000 times, resting on the lid of a piano exactly like this one. She thought about how a rich man builds a room. She thought about how a rich man builds a room around a woman he wants to bring inside it. She left the room with the piano. She went back to the kitchen and made herself eat rice. She salted it. She ate half. She put the rest in the refrigerator in a glass container with a red lid, because that was the container she would want later. At 6:40, she went to the bedroom and lay on top of the comforter with her shoes on. She did not sleep. She listened to the apartment breathe around her. She counted the minutes to 7, because 7 was when practice would end, and 7:20 was when Elijah would be in a car, and 7:30 was when the car would be at the walk-up on the block with the bakery, and 7:33 was when her mother would open the door with the chain still on and say his name into the crack. 7:20 came. 7:30 came. At 7:32, the small screen beside the bed lit up with 2 words in a font she did not recognize. Elijah safe. She let out a breath she had been keeping in her ribs since Sunday. She sat up. She swung her feet to the floor. She wrote a message to her brother, and it said, "Proud of you." And he wrote back within a minute, "Coach ran us into the ground." And she smiled at the phone the way a person smiles at a phone when no one is in the room. She stood up and walked to the window and pressed her forehead to the glass and looked at a river she did not own. The night finished around her. She did not turn on a lamp. She sat on the edge of the bed in the dark and let her eyes adjust to the room until the room was gray instead of black. At 3:11, her phone buzzed once on the nightstand. Not a message. A video. The number was blocked. The thumbnail was dark. She pressed play with the sound at the lowest setting she could still hear. A garage. Concrete floor with a drain in the middle. Fluorescent light from the left. Elijah on his knees in the gray school hoodie with the yellow logo, hands zip-tied in front of him, the brace on his top teeth catching the light when he blinked. A man's shoulder passed through the frame in a brown suit sleeve. A gloved hand held the phone. The camera did not shake. Elijah looked up at the camera. He said one word. He said her name. The video was 11 seconds long. She played it again with the sound off because she needed to see the drain and the light and the sleeve without the sound of her brother's voice in her mouth. The drain was round with a cross pattern. The light hummed at a frequency she could see in the flicker. The sleeve was brown with a small stain at the cuff. Her hand did not shake. Her hand should have shaken. Her hand did not shake because her hand had gone somewhere else. The screen beside the bed came on by itself. Sloan Kettering, room 812, Delilah Brooks admitted 21 minutes ago, cardiac event, stable. The two things arrived on top of each other, and for a second, she could not tell which one she was reading. She stood up. She walked out of the bedroom with the phone in her hand, and she walked down the corridor in bare feet, and she opened the door with the two doors between them, and she pushed it in without knocking. He was awake. He was dressed. He was standing at the window with a white shirt untucked and his forearms bare, and the koi on his neck lit blue by the tablet on the sill. She threw the phone at his chest. He caught it. "You said." He did not answer. "You said if he moved you would know within a minute." "I knew. He has my brother." "I know. My mother is in a hospital." "I know. Then why is my brother on a concrete floor?" He set the phone on the sill screen down. He turned to face her fully. He did not step closer. Because Marcus Riley moved everything at once. He knew if he only took the boy, we would burn a city looking for him. He took the boy, and he touched your mother's tea at the pharmacy, and he waited for one of them to fall before he sent the video. He is telling us the game has two hands. You said Ash was with Elijah. Ash was with Elijah. Ash is with him now. She stopped. Ash is with him now. Elijah is not in that garage anymore. The video is a photograph of a moment. The moment is already over. When? 9 minutes ago, before the video was sent. Then why send it? To make you throw a phone at my chest instead of at your mother's doctor. She did not sit down. She did not step back. She looked at him, and she saw, for the first time since she had walked into the room, that his hands were open at his sides and completely still, and that the stillness was not calm. It was the stillness of a man who had already decided which door he was about to walk through. "I want to see him." "You will. Now. You will see him in an hour. He will be at your mother's room. You will go to your mother's room. You will sit with her. You will tell her a story about the game he almost had tonight. She will hold your hand and she will fall asleep because her heart is tired, and it is a small tired, not a big one, and by 7 she will be awake and asking for tea, and Elijah will be eating the almond twist I left on your counter. You brought a second one. I brought 2. She sat down then, on the floor, back against the door. She put her hands flat on the wood and closed her eyes for the count of 3 and opened them. And Riley. He walked past her without touching her. He picked up a suit jacket from the back of a chair. He put it on. He rolled his sleeves down and buttoned the cuffs one at a time. He fastened the top button of his shirt. He walked to the small table by the door and picked up the gold lighter she had first seen through a window on the 8th floor of a casino when she had not looked up. He closed his hand around it. He did not click it. He stopped at the door. He did not look down at her. "Go to your mother." He left. She sat on the floor for a full minute after the door closed. Then she stood up. She went to her bedroom. She took off the shirt she had slept in and put on the black turtleneck and jeans she had worn on the day she had signed a contract with a fountain pen. She pulled her hair back and pinned it with the 2 clips her mother had given her on her 16th birthday. She looked at the mirror once and did not look at it again. On the way to the door, she passed the small table in the entry. There was a bowl on the table. In the bowl were 3 things she had not seen on Sunday when she arrived, and 3 things she had not seen on any of the 18 days since. A pair of car keys with a leather fob, a folded piece of paper with the name of a specialist at Sloan, and a phone number written under it in the same slanted small hand she would see, an hour later, on the front of an envelope in a hospital lounge, and a small silver charm shaped like a fish, no bigger than a fingernail, resting on the folded paper like a paperweight. She looked at the fish and did not pick it up. Ash was in the hall when she came out. His face did the small thing he had trained it to do when he was carrying news he could not open. He walked her to the elevator with one button. The elevator opened into the garage on the level she had entered 19 days ago. A different car this time. Black, matte, no windows in the back. He held the door. Where is he? Your brother is at the hospital already. He is in the family lounge on 8. He is drinking a bottle of orange juice with a straw. He is not hurt. You were there. I was there. You were where? I was in the garage before the light came on. The camera you saw was already recording. It records for a client who paid to see the boy on his knees. That client is not a person anymore. She looked at his hands. His hands were clean. His gloves were clean. That was its own kind of sentence. Drive. He drove. She sat behind him. The seat smelled of leather and something else. Faint, industrial. The kind of smell a car has when the car has been cleaned in the last hour. Ash? Yes. Did he cry? No. Did he ask for me? He said your name once. When the sleeve came in the frame, he said it low, like he was correcting someone. She let that sit in the space between the seats. Was there more than one man in the garage? 4. How many left? None on their feet. She turned her face back to the window, and she did not ask another question, because a question, at that moment, would have meant she was pretending she had not already understood the answer. She rode with her forehead against the window, and she watched the city step past her at the speed of a man who had been told to take the second fastest route. She thought about the almond twist on the counter and the container with the red lid in the refrigerator and the piano in the room where the air did not feel measured, and she thought about her mother's hand at 23 on a lid of pale wood, and she thought, without wanting to, about the moment 2 years ago in a service corridor on the 4th floor of a casino when a man had leaned against a wall with 2 buttons undone, and she had looked at his collar for 1 4/10 of a second before she had turned and walked out. She had not seen the koi that night. Her eyes had passed over it and gone. But he had seen her seeing it, and he had built 19 days around a woman who had not, quite, seen him back. The car pulled up at the hospital entrance under the covered drive. She got out. She did not thank Ash. Ash did not expect her to. He walked 2 steps behind her through the doors and up the elevator and down the hall, and he stopped at the corner before the family lounge, and he let her walk the last 20 feet by herself. Elijah was on the couch with his knees up and the orange juice in his lap and the straw in his mouth. When he saw her, he set the bottle on the low table without spilling any of it. He got up. He was taller than her by 3 inches now, and she had not gotten used to it yet, and she never would. He walked to her the way a 16-year-old walks to his sister when he has decided in advance that he is not going to cry. He hugged her. "Sorry I'm late," he said, into her shoulder. "You're not late. For the game. Game's Tuesday." "Today's Tuesday, Sai." She had lost a day somewhere in the count. She held him tighter. "Then I'll come to Tuesday." She let him go. She looked at his hands. The zip tie had left a red line on each wrist. It would fade by morning. She looked at his face. There was no bruise. There was no swelling. There was a boy who had been on a concrete floor for less than 11 minutes and who had known, on that floor, that his sister was going to come. "Mom?" "Sleeping." They said stable. They said stable 4 times. I made them say it 4 times. "Good." They sat down together on the couch and he put the orange juice back in his lap and she put her arm around his shoulders and let her head rest for a moment on the side of his head, and the smell of him was the smell of practice and shampoo and a hoodie that had been worn under a wool blanket in a car for 20 minutes, and she closed her eyes and she thought, for the first time since 3/11, that she might not throw up. A nurse came in and said her mother was awake for a minute if she wanted. She wanted. She went into the room. The lamp above the bed was set to the lowest of 3 settings. Her mother's eyes were half open. The IV taped to the back of her hand made a small hill under the thin blanket. Her mother saw her, and her mother's mouth moved into the shape of a smile that had lost some of its teeth to weariness. "Baby," her mother said, "I'm here." "You cut your hair." "No, Mama, just pinned it." "Pretty." She sat down on the edge of the bed. She took her mother's hand in both of hers. She said the word story, and her mother nodded once and closed her eyes, and she began to talk. She told her about a boy who had gone to practice and been picked up by the wrong car and had gotten out of the wrong car because the driver of the wrong car had turned out to be the right driver after all. She did not use names. She did not use the word garage. She used the words practice and orange juice and Tuesday. Her mother's hand went slack in hers around the 3rd minute, and her mother's breath fell into the deep, slow rhythm of a person whose heart had been told by a machine that it was allowed to be tired. Her mother's fingers twitched once in her palm and settled. The machine on the wall drew a green line that climbed and fell, and climbed and fell. In a rhythm Sienna made herself watch, until the shape of it stopped meaning anything but the fact of it. She thought about the tamoxifen organizer on the kitchen counter of the walk-up, and how the Sunday slot had a pill in it again, because a man she had married under false pretenses had made sure the Sunday slot had a pill in it. She thought about how it had been easier 7 weeks ago to hate a stranger than it was, now, to sit in a hospital room and count the rise and fall of a green line, and know that the man who had bought the line was the same man who had left the room a little while ago, with the top button of his shirt closed and a gold lighter in his hand. She did not know what he was doing at that moment. She had a guess. She kept the guess in the back of her mouth and did not let it forward. She stayed until the nurse tapped the doorframe. She went back to the lounge. Elijah had fallen asleep with the orange juice bottle still upright in his lap. She took it. She put it on the table. She covered him with the folded blanket from the arm of the couch. She sat on the floor with her back against the couch and her head against her brother's knee. She took her phone out of her pocket. There were no new messages. The screen showed her the time, 4:41. She thought about the aunt in Charlotte and the 9 months of not calling, and the reason for the 9 months, which was a fight over a Thanksgiving in a year Sienna could still name if she wanted to name it. She thought about what it would mean to press that name now, at 4 in the morning, and hear a voice that had raised her mother from 10 years old and would not, at 4 in the morning, ask a single question before saying yes. She scrolled to the bottom of her contacts. She looked at the name for a long time. She did not press the name. She put the phone face down on the carpet. The door of the lounge opened. Ash stood in it. He held a small paper envelope in one gloved hand. He did not step in. He held out the envelope at the length of his arm, and he waited for her to take it. She took it. He did not say anything. He closed the door. The envelope was thin. Her name was written on the front in a hand she had not seen before, slanted, small, deliberate. Not Taehyun's. Not Hyun's. Someone else. Someone new. She turned the envelope over. There was no seal. The flap was tucked in. She lifted the flap. Inside was one photograph and one folded page. She took out the photograph first, because a photograph is a shorter sentence than a page. She held it up to the low lamp of the lounge. She looked at the photograph. The paper was thicker than a print made this year. The edges had the softened corners of a print made a long time ago and kept since then in a book. The light in the image came in through a window she had never stood in front of and fell on a face she had known her whole life. She stopped breathing. Sienna made herself breathe. In, out. Once. The photograph shook a little in her hand, and then it stopped shaking because she made it stop. The face was her mother's, younger than she had ever seen her mother be. 30, maybe. Hair pulled back, a scarf at the throat, the same amendoada eyes that Sienna carried on her own face. A window behind her that Sienna did not know. Buildings outside that Sienna did not know. A room she had never entered in her life. Delilah was sitting at a piano bench. There was a child beside her. The child had a small, serious face and a straight fringe of black hair, and one hand on the keys, spread the way a teacher spreads a hand for a student. The teacher's hand belonged to Delilah. She was guiding the boy's fingers into a chord. Her thumb was under his thumb. Her mouth was open a fraction, saying something, and even in the still image Sienna knew the tone her mother used when she taught. Patient. A little amused. The particular softness she used only for children who were afraid. Sienna turned the photograph over. Someone had written on the back in a hand she did not recognize, in Hangul, and beneath the Hangul, in English, in the same slanted new script from the folded page. Seoul, autumn 1994. She taught me for 11 weeks. My mother had no money. She never asked. Sienna set the photograph down on the lounge coffee table very carefully. She unfolded the page. It was one paragraph, English, no greeting, no signature. My mother worked in a hotel laundry 2 blocks from the conservatory. She wanted me to have music because she believed a boy who could sit still for 1 hour could survive anything. Your mother took me on Thursdays after her last class. She refused pay. When my mother tried to leave a jar of kimchi at the door, she took the kimchi and gave back a lesson book. 11 weeks. Then we left the country. I was 8. I have carried this for 26 years. Everything I have done since you crossed the 4th floor service corridor has been the return of a debt that is not mine to erase. It is only mine to honor. The debt did not begin with me. It began with a woman who thought a scared boy deserved dignity. Riley is finished. Your brother is in the lounge above yours drinking orange juice. Your mother is stable. What happens next is yours. Sienna read it twice, then a third time. She folded the page along the same crease it had come in on. She put the page under the photograph. She put both hands flat on the table. The corridor outside made hospital sounds, a gurney wheel that wanted grease. A monitor 2 rooms over pinging on a 5-second beat. Somewhere a woman laughing on a phone, tired, real, the laughter of someone who had already cried tonight and was done crying. Sienna listened to that laugh until it stopped. Elijah shifted on the couch. He murmured something around the plastic straw of the juice cup and then he settled again, one arm flung over his face. The bruise on his wrist from the zip tie was already lifting. By morning it would be a shadow. By tomorrow night it would be nothing. She would tell him one day. Not now, not near this hospital, not while he still believed the men who took him had been arrested and processed by police who did not exist in this city for people like them. She thought of Delilah at 30, and married to a man who was already sick, 30, and teaching classical piano at a conservatory across an ocean because a program had needed a black American woman for a brochure, and Delilah had said yes because the flight was free and the money was better than Newark. Sienna had heard the story of Soul once, when she was 9, in a kitchen, when her mother was in a good mood. 11 weeks in a city she had never named again, a boy she had never named at all. Sienna had assumed her mother had told her everything. She had not told her one thing. The phone in Sienna's pocket vibrated. A message from Priya. Your mother woke for a minute. She asked where the girl with the coffee stain was. I told her the girl was safe. She went back to sleep. She's fine. Sienna typed back. Thank you. And put the phone away. She stood. She walked to the lounge window. Manhattan was still on the wrong side of dawn, that blue-black that pretends to be morning and isn't. Down on the avenue an ambulance turned left without its siren on, red lights spinning silent. A newspaper truck idled at a delivery door. A man in a green apron carried a folded crate over one shoulder toward a coffee shop that had not yet opened. Ordinary morning, ordinary city. She watched it the way she watched anything now, which was through a piece of glass someone else had bought. She thought of the aunt in Charlotte. 9 months, a stupid Thanksgiving about a turkey and a boyfriend and a comment nobody should have made. She took the phone out again and scrolled to the bottom of the contacts and looked at the name and did not press it. Not yet. Soon. Not yet. She thought of the post-it in her wallet. Don't be seen. She had written it to herself the morning after she had first spoken his name into an empty street. She had been 10 hours late already when she wrote it. She had been 2 years late when she wrote it. She almost smiled. She did not smile. She folded her arms across her chest and watched the newspaper truck pull away. Behind her, in the reflection on the glass, Ash appeared at the doorway of the lounge. He did not step in. He tilted his head, a small, polite question. She turned. He's back? Ash nodded once. Where? Downstairs, he said to tell you he won't come up unless you ask. Sienna looked at the couch. Elijah was breathing evenly, the juice cup tipped in his hand, empty now. She lifted it, set it on the side table, tugged the blanket up over his shoulder. She kissed the corner of his forehead where the hair grew softest. He did not stir. She picked up the photograph and the folded page from the coffee table and slid both inside the paperback novel a stranger had left on the shelf. Between page 200 and page 201, she put the paperback back on the shelf, spine out. It looked like any book. It was not any book. I'll come down, she said. Ash stepped aside to let her through the doorway. In the corridor, the fluorescent light was the color of old milk. 2 nurses at the station lifted their heads and lowered them. A man on a wall phone was arguing quietly in Spanish about insurance. Sienna walked past all of it without seeing any of it. The elevator was empty. Ash pressed a button she did not see him press. The doors closed. She watched the numbers descend and did not speak. and neither did he. He smelled faintly of gun oil and of something clean under the oil, the way a good knife smells after it has been washed. His gloves were off. The knuckles on his left hand had a small scrape that had not been there 4 hours ago. He had put ointment on it already. That detail undid something in her chest she had not known was tied. Ash. Ma'am. The 4 men in the garage. He waited. Did any of them speak? One tried. What did he say? He asked for his mother. Sienna closed her eyes. How old? 19. She did not ask the next question. Ash did not offer the next answer. The elevator opened at the lobby level of a floor she had not been on before, and Ash walked her through a side hallway to a door that led to a covered driveway, and past the driveway to a black sedan she recognized by its matte finish, and by the fact that the rear windows had no seam where a rear window should be. Taehyun was not inside the car. He was standing beside it. He had changed out of the black turno. He wore a fresh charcoal one now. His shirt was open at the throat by 2 buttons the way he wore it in the Baekwa, which meant he had stopped somewhere between the end of the night and this driveway, and had taken the time to change into something that would not carry any of it. His hands were bare, his hands were clean. She looked for a moment at the beds of his nails, and there was nothing there. He had washed twice then. The koi tattoo on the left side of his neck rose out of the collar exactly as it had risen out of a collar 2 years ago in a service corridor she had walked into by accident. It had not moved in 2 years. Nothing about him had moved in 2 years except toward her. She stopped 3 feet from him. You wrote the note? Yes. The hangul on the back of the photo. That's your hand too. Yes. You wrote it tonight. I wrote it a week ago. I've been carrying it. She let that sit. He let it sit. Riley, she said. Done. How? Quietly. How? He did not look away. There was a boat. Now there isn't. She waited. He was awake for it, Taehyun said. I wanted him to be awake for it. That was for your brother, not for me. Sienna felt something rise in her throat and swallow itself. The 4 men, she said. One asked for his mother. Yes. Ash told me. I asked him to. Why? Because you needed to know, and you would not have believed me. You would have believed him. She looked at Ash, who had already stepped away to a polite distance beside the driver's door and had turned his face toward the empty street. She looked back at Taehyun. You could have lied, she said. To you? No. The wind lifted the hem of her turtleneck. She had left the hospital without a coat. The 2 hairpins her mother had given her at 16 were still holding back the front of her afro exactly where she had put them 10 hours ago. She had bent them slightly at the tips when she was 14, so they would grip better. Delilah had bent hers the same way at 14. Sienna's grandmother had bent hers the same way. 3 generations of bent pins. She thought of that and did not know why. My mother, she said. Yes. 1994. Autumn. 11 weeks. 11 weeks. She never told me your name. She never asked mine. Sienna laughed. It was not a happy sound, but it was a sound. She wouldn't have. She'd have just called you baby. She did. Sienna closed her mouth. It was too much. It was exactly enough. The tea, she said. You knew the tea. She made it for me on cold days. It was her own blend. I asked my aunt to get me the same one for this apartment before you came. Before I came. Before you came. 2 years before I came. He inclined his head. The order was placed the week after the corridor. Sienna wrapped her arms tighter across her chest. She thought about being angry. She waited for the anger. It did not come, because it had been coming for 2 weeks in the wrong direction, and it had spent itself last night in the doorway of his bedroom with a phone thrown at his chest. What was here now was quieter and larger, and it did not have a name yet. Take me home, she said. He opened the rear door for her. She did not get in. To the apartment, she said. Not to my mother's. He nodded. She got in. Ash drove. The sedan moved through streets that were beginning to have people in them. A woman in scrubs waiting at a bus stop reading something on her phone. A man walking a small dog with a limp. A delivery bike weaving between a taxi and a produce truck. Sienna watched all of it through the tinted glass and thought about the shape of her mother's hand on a stranger's boy's hand in a room she had never seen. Taehyun sat beside her. He did not touch her. He did not speak. He He looked out his window the way she looked out hers. She noticed after 10 blocks that he had angled his body slightly to give her more of the seat than she needed. She noticed after 12 blocks that he had done that from the moment she got in. The garage under Bakwa opened and closed for them. The elevator with one button rose. The doors opened onto the corridor of the penthouse. Sienna stepped out first. On the entry table, the objects were exactly as she had left them. The new car key with the leather fob, the folded paper with the Sloan specialist's name in slanted handwriting, and the small silver charm shaped like a fish holding the paper down. She picked up the charm and turned it in her fingers. It was a koi. It had been a koi the whole time. She had not let herself see that before. She put it in her palm and closed her hand. She walked past the kitchen, past the sitting room, past the small library where she had found the folder 18 days ago, past the room with the piano identical to her mother's. She stopped at the door with the biometric reader. Taehyun stopped behind her, 3 feet back. "Open it," she said. He came forward. He put his thumb on the reader. There was a small mechanical exhale, and the door unlocked and swung inward, 2 inches on its own. He did not push it the rest of the way. He stepped back again. Sienna pushed the door. The room behind it was small, smaller than the library. 3 walls of shelves and a 4th wall of glass looking east. On the shelves there were not weapons. There were not ledgers. There were boxes. Photograph boxes, cardboard, acid-free, labeled by year, in the same slanted hand. 1994, 1995. All the way forward to this year, and on the middle shelf at eye height there was one box that was not labeled by year. It was labeled Delilah B., Student Notes. Inside, when she opened it, were pages torn from a lesson book, in her mother's round, precise teaching hand, with fingerings marked and small drawings of encouragement in the margins. A cartoon star, a cartoon crown, a note that said, "Good, Taehyun, good, keep the wrists soft." Sienna sat down on the floor of that room with the box on her lap. She did not cry. She had been going to cry, and then she had decided not to, and the deciding took less than a second, and she was not sure whether the deciding was strength or something else. She read 3 pages. She put them back. She closed the box. She placed the box back on the shelf exactly where it had been. She stood. "You kept my mother's handwriting for 26 years. Yes. In an acid-free box. Yes. Behind a biometric lock. Yes. Why? Because it was the only thing anyone in my life ever gave me that did not want a piece of me back." She looked at him then, fully, for the first time since the corridor 2 years ago, and for the first time since she had signed her name at the bottom of 5 clauses in an office with no windows. "I want the contract," she said. He walked to the small desk under the window and opened a drawer and took out a manila folder identical to the one Ha-hoon had opened 19 days ago, in a room she had entered through an elevator with no buttons. He brought the folder to her. He held it flat on his 2 palms the way someone offers a ceremonial thing. She took it. She opened it to the last page. Clause 6, which she had not read. Renewable at 12 months. Signed by both parties. Countersigned by Ha-eun Jang as witness. Notarized. She looked at him. Pen. He took a fountain pen from an inside pocket. The same one she had signed with. She uncapped it. She did not cross out Clause 6. She read it twice, because now she could read it, because now the room she was standing in had told her enough about the man who had drafted it that she owed the sentences a full reading. 12 months. Renewable by written consent of both parties. Either party may decline renewal without cause. Neither party's decline shall carry financial penalty against the other or against any dependents named in clauses 2 through 4. She looked at him again. "You wrote it so I could leave." "Yes." "You put my mother and my brother into clauses that survive the renewal." "Yes." "You built the exit before you built the room." "Yes." She turned back to the page. She did not cross out Clause 6. She drew a line through the number 12. Above it she wrote, "Indefinite." Then, in a smaller hand beside the line she had drawn, she wrote, "Renewable by her alone." She initialed it. She held the pen out to him. He took it. He read what she had written. He looked at her for a long moment. He signed his initials next to hers. Then he set the pen down on the desk. Then he did what he had not done in 19 days of coexistence. and would not have done tonight if she had not first crossed the room. Sienna crossed the room. She stopped an inch from him. She put her forehead against his forehead. She kept her hands at her sides. He kept his hands at his sides. They stayed like that for the count of a full breath, and then for the count of 2. "Say my name," she said. "Sienna." Again. "Sienna." Again. "Sienna." She stepped back. She did not step far. She closed her hand around the koi charm in her palm and felt the small edges of it press into her lifeline. "The apartment is yours from now until I say otherwise," she said. "That was your note." "Yes. I'm saying otherwise. The apartment is ours." He nodded once. She turned and walked out of the small room. He followed at 3 feet. She walked back through the corridor, past the piano room, past the library, into the sitting room where the light was beginning to come up over the East River and paint one wall of the penthouse the exact color of the inside of a peach. She stopped at the window. The city was waking. Small figures on sidewalks. A tugboat crossing the river with a barge behind it. The Queensboro Bridge catching sun on its highest cable and throwing the light back at nothing. "I need to do 3 things today," she said. "Then I'll sleep. Tell me. I'm going to sit with my mother when she wakes up. I'm going to tell her the truth about you. Not the mafia truth. The soul truth. She'll want to know. She'll pretend she doesn't, and then she'll ask 3 questions. All right. I'm going to take Elijah to breakfast at the diner on 141st where he likes the pancakes, and I'm going to tell him nothing yet. He can have another year of not knowing. All right. And I'm going to call my aunt in Charlotte." He was quiet a beat. "Do you want Ash to drive you?" "No, I'll take the car with the leather fob. I'll drive myself." "All right." She turned from the window. She held out the koi charm on her open palm. "You gave me a key," she said. "Yes." "I'm keeping it." "Yes. But the door works from the inside too. I decided that this morning." He looked at the charm, and he looked at her hand, and he did not touch either. "Yes," he said. She closed her hand around the charm. She slid it into the small pocket sewn into the waistband of her jeans, the one no one but her knew about, the one she had used since she was 17 to hide subway money from a boyfriend who used to check her wallet. It was the pocket she trusted more than any safe. She thought about the wallet. She thought about the post-it inside it. "Don't be seen." She thought about pulling it out and tearing it up and dropping it in the kitchen bin. She decided against it. She would keep it. Not as a rule anymore. As a receipt. As proof that a woman had walked around a city for 2 years believing she was invisible, while a man in an 8th-floor room was learning her mother's coffee order and her brother's jersey number and the name of the pharmacist who counted out her mother's tamoxifen. She would keep the post-it the way people keep the ticket stubs from the movie they saw the night everything changed. Small. Folded. Beside the point and exactly the point. Delilah would wake at 9. She would ask for water and for the girl with the coffee stain. Sienna would be in the chair beside her when she opened her eyes. She would tell her mother that a boy her mother had taught in Seoul in the autumn of 1994 had grown into a man and had spent the last 2 years quietly making sure the family of the woman who had refused his mother's kimchi did not lose one thing more than they had already lost. Delilah would say nothing for a while. Then she would say, "What was his name?" Sienna would say, "Seo Taehyun." Delilah would close her eyes and nod once, the small nod she used to nod when a hard cord finally opened its throat under a student's hand, and she would say, "Good, baby, good." That boy had soft wrists. Then she would want to see him. She would want to see him today. Elijah would eat 4 pancakes and ask nothing. He would tell her about a girl in his history class. He would ask if he was still allowed to try out for varsity next fall, because a coach he did not know had told him last week that his footwork was better than his shot, and he wanted to know what she thought that meant. She would tell him it meant he was going to be a very hard player to guard. He would grin around the aparello on his teeth. He would ask her if she was okay. She would say yes. She would mean it, for the first time in 3 years. The aunt in Charlotte would pick up on the 4th ring. She would say, "Sienna." The way she used to say it when Sienna was little and had done something small and wonderful. Sienna would say, "I'm sorry about the turkey. I'm sorry about all of it. Mom is sick. Come." The aunt would already be looking at flights before she hung up. All of that was a day away, and none of it was a day away. Sienna stood at the window of a room she now owned half of and watched a city that had never seen her come into focus in the light of an ordinary Tuesday. Taehyun stayed 3 feet behind her. He would stay 3 feet behind her until she called him closer, and she would call him closer, and not yet. Somewhere below them, on a floor she had never been to, an 8-year-old boy was still sitting at a piano, with a woman's thumb under his thumb. Somewhere below that, in a corridor she had walked into by accident 2 years ago, a woman was turning her head 1 4/10 of a second too long. Somewhere below that, in a garage that no longer had 4 men standing in it, a 19-year-old had asked for his mother and had not received her. The city kept its bookkeeping, the ledger balanced only for those who had the patience to read the whole page. Sienna took the gold lighter out of the pocket of Taehyun's jacket, which he had folded over the arm of the couch when they walked in, and she turned it once in her fingers. She did not click it. She set it on the low table beside the window, upright, the small engraved koi on its side catching a first sliver of sun. "You can click it later," she said, "when we know what we're lighting." He almost smiled. The cage of gold that a city had built around a girl who used to count singles under a shift bell closed the last inch of its door. The lock turned. The key was inside. She had put it there herself. Outside the window, morning came on all the way. She was home. The elevator opened on the 9th floor of the Sloan at 8:47, and Sienna stepped out with the fob of the new car still warm in her palm. She had driven 12 blocks to prove she could drive 12 blocks, and then she had come back because the mother she was going to sit with had woken up early. Priya was waiting by the window of 812 with a paper cup and a small nod. She said Delilah had asked for a comb, and had asked twice. Sienna took the comb from the drawer. She sat on the edge of the bed the way she had sat since she was 7, 1 hip on, 1 foot down. She combed slowly through the short gray hair the chemo had left, and when she opened her mouth to say the sentence she had rehearsed on the drive, Delilah spoke first. "You look like you've been up all night, baby." "I have." "Then talk while I close my eyes." "Everything sounds gentler when I close my eyes." Sienna talked. She kept the sentence order she had drawn in her head on the drive over. Seoul, autumn 1994, 11 weeks, a hotel laundry, a boy of 8, a woman with tired hands. Delilah's eyelids did not lift. Her mouth softened around the corners the way it did when she was hearing music she remembered. When Sienna reached the word koi, her mother made a small sound that was not surprise. "His name was Taehyun," Delilah said, eyes still shut. "His mother's name was Sun Mi. She brought me pears one week." Sienna's hand stopped in the hair. "You remember?" "I remember him. I did not remember his last name. Seo Taehyun." Delilah tasted it. "I remember his wrists were too thin for the piano. I told his mother to give him more rice." There was a long minute where the machine on the wall counted, and Delilah's mouth stayed soft, and Sienna's palm rested on the top of her mother's head, the way she had rested it there 100 times without a reason. Then Delilah opened her eyes. "Baby, where is he now?" "Downstairs. Downstairs of this hospital. He drove me here. He is in the lobby." Delilah did not blink for a beat that was too long. "Bring him up when I have brushed my teeth." Sienna kissed her mother's forehead. She went to the door. She stopped with her hand on the frame. "Mama." "I know already, Sienna." "You know what?" "That you did not marry a nurse." Sienna laughed once, and the laugh came out wrong, and she went into the hallway to fix her face before the elevator button. Ash was already on the 9th floor. He had come up on the other stairs, the way he always came up on the other stairs. He held out a small bottle of water without speaking, and she took a sip and gave it back. "He is in the lobby," she said. "He's on his way up. Now." Now. Taehyun came out of the service elevator, not the visitor's one. The charcoal suit had a fresh crease at the knee where he had knelt to tie something. He carried nothing in his hands. Sienna walked to him and stopped 1 step short of the man she had married, and she looked up. "She remembers your mother's name." He held very still. "Sun Mi." "Yes." "She brought her pears." "Yes." "I have not heard my mother's name spoken by anyone but me in 11 years. He said it flat, the way he said all the things that had teeth. Then he did something Sienna had not seen him do. He took a breath in through his nose that shook a little on the way out. She reached up and touched his sleeve at the elbow. Not to comfort, to count. He was there. They walked into A12 together. Delilah had put on the reading glasses, and the rosary on her left wrist had been turned so the crucifix faced her. She looked at the door as it opened, and she did not look surprised. She looked like a woman who had spent 30 seconds arranging her mouth. Taehyun. Ma'am. Come here. He crossed to the bed, the way a man crosses to a bed he does not expect to be allowed to touch. Delilah lifted her hand. He took it. She turned it over and looked at his palm, and then at the tattoo climbing out of his collar, and then at his face. You kept your wrist soft, she said. You told me to. I told you a lot of things. I know. Delilah's thumb moved across the base of his hand once, then let go. She lay back into the pillow. She addressed the ceiling. When my daughter came in this morning, she did not smell like the coffee and fear she has smelled like since April. Did you do that? No, ma'am. Who did? She did. Delilah closed her eyes. Correct answer. Sienna sat down on the chair on the far side of the bed. Her knees stopped shaking somewhere between the door and the chair, and she noticed the stopping and filed the noticing for later. Taehyun stood where he had been placed. Delilah asked 3 questions with her eyes still shut, about the boy in the lounge, about the man named Riley, about what her daughter had signed. Taehyun answered them in the order asked. He did not soften Riley. He did not embroider the paper. When he got to the clause Sienna had struck out that morning, Delilah opened one eye halfway. Indefinite by her alone. Yes. Then it isn't a cage. No. Good. She turned her face into the pillow and said, very small, bring me the boy when he wakes up. Not before. He hates hospital sheets. Sienna and Taehyun stepped into the hallway together. The door clicked. She did not look at him for a full breath. Then she said Elijah and started walking, because Elijah was the next thing on the list she had drawn on the drive. The lounge on 8 was the same lounge she had left at dawn, the same low couch, the same blanket, the same suck-marked juice cup on the table. Elijah was awake and sitting up. His hair had a couch crease on one side. He looked at his sister and then past her at Taehyun and then back at his sister. Sissy. Hey. Who's the suit? Sienna sat on the couch and let her hip touch her brother's knee. His name is Taehyun. Elijah looked at Taehyun for a long second. He was 16 years old and 3 inches taller than his sister, and he had spent the night in a hospital lounge after something he had been told was a car problem, and he was not stupid. Taehyun stayed by the door. He did not sit. He did not come closer. Elijah said, You're the reason my coach's new number rings straight through. Yes. You're the reason there's a guy in a black jacket at every practice. Yes. You dating my sister. Sienna opened her mouth to answer for him and closed it, because Taehyun was already answering. I am married to your sister. Elijah nodded once. He looked at his sister. He said the thing she had been afraid he would say, and it came out the way 16-year-old boys say big things, offhand, so nobody could see them shake. When? 19 days ago. Legal. Legal. You okay? I am okay. Elijah tapped his knee twice with his knuckle. He tapped it a third time. Then he looked back at Taehyun and said, Pancakes. Pancakes, Sienna repeated. You said pancakes. I did. Then pancakes. He got up in one motion, the way 16-year-olds get up, and he looked at Taehyun on the way to the bathroom door and said, I want the diner on 141st, not one of your places. Understood. Elijah closed the bathroom door. Sienna sat on the couch and looked at her hands and remembered to breathe. Taehyun came 2 steps into the lounge and stopped again. He is going to hate me for a year, he said. Probably. That is fair. It is. They drove to the diner in the new car. Sienna drove. Elijah sat in the passenger seat and messed with the radio and did not look at Taehyun in the back seat once. Ash followed in the sedan, 2 blocks back, the way he always followed. The diner smelled like griddle and coffee and burnt sugar. The waitress remembered Elijah from the year he came in every Saturday with his father, before his father left. And she did not remember that his father had left. And she asked how his dad was doing, and Elijah said fine, and Sienna paid for a stack of blueberry and a stack of chocolate chip and coffee and orange juice and left a tip that made the waitress look up. Taehyun ate half a pancake. He did not talk. He watched the door and watched the sidewalk and watched Elijah eat, and when Elijah reached for the syrup, he pushed it 2 inches closer without looking. Elijah noticed. Elijah did not say anything. That was the entire first meal. Outside the diner, Elijah stopped on the sidewalk and turned to Taehyun and said, "If she cries because of you, I will find a way." "I know." "Say okay." "Okay." That's all. They dropped Elijah at the walk-up so he could shower before school, and Priya was already there with the door open, and Ash took position in the lobby, and Sienna sat in the driver's seat with her hands on the wheel and did not turn the key. "Charlotte," Taehyun said, quiet. "I know. You want me out of the car for the call?" "Yes." He got out. He stood on the sidewalk 2 doors down, with his back to the car, so she could not see his face, and so nobody could see hers. Sienna pressed the contact at the bottom of her list. It rang 4 times. On the 4th ring, a voice she had not heard in 9 months said her name. "Sienna." "Aunt V." "Baby." There was a long minute of nothing, and it was not the bad kind of nothing. Then V said, "Your mama okay?" "She's in the hospital." "She's okay." "When?" "2 nights." "Which one?" "Sloan." 8:12. "I'm on I-77 in 3 hours." "Wait." Sienna closed her eyes. "Wait, Aunt V, there's more." "Say it." Sienna said it. She kept the words small. She said, "I got married," and she said Seoul, 1994, and she said, "Mama remembers his mother," and she said, "Riley is done," and she did not say Riley's name twice. V listened. V did not interrupt. When Sienna stopped, V said, "You loved somebody the last time we fought." "I did not." "You did. You loved that mother of yours, and I said something ugly about her second husband, and you didn't call for 9 months. Yes. I was wrong then. I know. I am still going to drive up." "Okay. Tomorrow. So you can put the boy back in his own bed tonight." "Okay." "Sienna." "Yes." "Bring him to the phone." Sienna rolled the window down. Taehyun turned. He walked back to the car slowly. She held the phone up. He took it. He said, "Ma'am," and then he listened for a very long time, and his shoulder came down 1/2 an inch by the end, and he said, "Yes, ma'am," twice, and he said, "Thank you," once, and he handed the phone back through the window without speaking. "She said what?" Sienna asked. "She said if you cry because of me, she will find a way." She and Elijah rehearsed. They did not need to. Sienna laughed. It was the second real laugh in a day that had started at 3 in the morning. She started the car. "Where?" Taehyun said. "Home." "Which?" "Yours." "Ours." They were on 116th when the second phone in his inside pocket buzzed once and stopped. He did not take it out. On 110th it buzzed again. He took it out and read the screen. He put it back. His jaw did the small thing it did when a fact had reached him that he had not planned for. Sienna watched the light change and did not ask. On 96th he said, "Pull over when you can." She pulled into a loading zone by the church. She left the engine on. "Talk." "Riley had a nephew," he said. She waited. 23. In Belfast until Tuesday, in JFK an hour ago. He knows about the boat. He knows Riley is not answering his phone. He does not know about the boat. He will know within 8 hours. He is coming here. He is already here. He landed at 7:14. He was expected. By who? By me. Sienna turned off the engine. "Say that again." He was expected. Ha-eun expected him. She flagged the ticket 4 days ago when Riley moved on your family. If Riley failed, the nephew was going to come. If Riley succeeded, the nephew was going to stay. He came. That is the answer to the question I did not want to ask this morning. Which question? Whether Riley was the ceiling. He wasn't. He was not. Sienna put both hands flat on the wheel. She looked through the windshield at the church door. A woman in a scarf was going in with a plastic bag of oranges. What does the nephew want? To make a point. If he is smart, 1 point, publicly, and go home. If he is not smart, 3 points, quietly, and stay. Which is he? I do not know yet. Ash is on him. Since when? Since 7:15. You knew before I called Charlotte. I knew as I got out of the car. Sienna nodded. She was not angry. Angry would come later, She filed it, and it did not come at all in the end, because she had a mother she had just told the truth to, and a brother who had eaten pancakes, and an aunt who was driving up tomorrow, and this new man with a new plane ticket, was a Tuesday problem that had happened to arrive on a Tuesday. What did the message say? That he took a cab to a hotel we own 2 blocks from Bakewah. He knows it is yours. He is telling us he knows it is mine. That is a point. That is a point. She started the car again. She pulled out. She drove the rest of the way to Bakewah without talking. In the garage below the building, she killed the engine and sat for a second with her hand on the fob. Taehyun. Yes. I am not going upstairs to sit. I know. I want to see him. He turned his head slowly. See who? The nephew. From a distance now. No. Yes. Sienna. Listen. She turned in the seat. 2 years ago I walked into the wrong hallway for 1.5 seconds, and it wrote 19 days of my life. I am not doing that again. I want to know his face before he knows mine. And I want you to be the one who takes me, because if I go alone I will do it anyway, and you will spend the afternoon looking for me. He looked at her for 4 seconds. Then he opened his door. Ash was in the garage before Taehyun's shoes touched the concrete. Ash did not speak. Taehyun said one word in Korean, low, and Ash tipped his head half an inch and turned around. 2 minutes later, a different sedan pulled up, older, dented on the rear quarter, the kind of car that lived on the block by permission. Sienna got in the back. Taehyun got in beside her. Ash drove. 2 blocks, 60 seconds. Ash stopped at a hydrant across from a hotel with a green awning and a doorman who did not look at the sedan on purpose. Taehyun pointed his chin at a coffee shop next to the hotel. A man in a canvas jacket was sitting in the window with a paper cup and a phone. Sienna looked. She looked hard, because looking would be the only work she would do. He was younger than she had prepared for. 23, the way 23 actually looks when it has been on a plane for 8 hours. His hair was red under a cap. His mouth was Riley's mouth. His eyes were not. Riley's eyes had been small and cold and mean. This boy's eyes were tired and wet and something worse than either. They were fresh. He had not decided yet what he was going to be. He was still deciding. She could see the deciding on his face while he stirred sugar into a cup he was not going to drink. He is going to make 3 points, Sienna said, quiet. Taehyun did not turn his head. Why? Because he did not decide to fly here until he already loved his uncle. That could go either way. He is 19 months out of a bad thing. Look at the way he is holding the phone. He came here for a reason, and he is going to invent the reason on the walk from the hotel to wherever he is walking to next. Taehyun looked at her, not the boy. How do you know he is 19 months out? Because I was 19 months out once. My father died and I was 19 months out of it for a year, and I did 4 stupid things in that year, and one of them almost killed my brother. Taehyun was quiet. Ash, he said. Ash's eyes lifted in the rear view. Do not touch him yet. Sir, do not touch him. Follow him. If he goes to the school, you go through him. If he goes to the hospital, you go through him. If he goes anywhere else, you eat lunch across the street and you wait. Yes, sir. And, Taehyun said, and stopped. He looked at Sienna. He said the next part to her, not to Ash. I would like to talk to him before I decide anything. Then talk to him. Not today. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. Where? He will pick. Sienna sat back in the seat. Ash pulled the sedan away from the hydrant. As they turned the corner, the boy in the window looked up, once, at nothing, and Sienna felt her stomach drop the way it dropped when she was on a bus and the bus took a hill too fast. He looked up. He looked at the sedan. He saw the sedan. He saw a sedan. He saw us. Taehyun did not answer. Ash was already dialing. He said 2 words in Korean and hung up. He turned right instead of left. He went around the block twice. On the 3rd circle, he pulled into a different garage, one Sienna had not seen before, and got out and opened her door. Up, he said. Taehyun and Sienna took a service elevator to the 16th floor of a building she had never entered. Ha-eun was waiting at the elevator. Her charcoal 3-piece was pressed. Her hair was pulled behind her ears. She held 2 folders. She did not look at Sienna's face. She looked at Sienna's hands, and Sienna understood, in a way she would only articulate later, that Ha-Hyun had been checking whether Sienna's hands shook. They did not. "He is fast," Ha-Hyun said. "He clocked the sedan," Tae-Hyun said. "He clocked the plate. He is on the phone now to a number in Queens." Queens who? An old associate of his uncle. Not a friend, a rental. 2 men, 3,000 a night. For what? For a room and a car and a job that has not been named yet. Tae-Hyun turned. He looked at Sienna. He said, "You said 3 points. I said 3. He is already at 2. Belfast to JFK and the phone call to Queens. The third one is what he does with the men he rents." "Yes. Then we cut the men off," Sienna said. Ha-Hyun's eyes moved to Sienna then, and there was the smallest thing in them that had not been there in the study 19 nights ago. Respect, or curiosity, or the space where respect was starting to grow. "We can," Ha-Hyun said. "It will cost him face. I do not care about his face. You should. If we cost him face without giving him a room to keep it, he will do something stupid to get it back tonight. Then give him the room." "What is the room?" "A conversation with my husband. Neutral ground, public enough that he does not do anything, and private enough that he can say the words he needs to say." Ha-Hyun looked at Tae-Hyun. Tae-Hyun looked at Sienna. Sienna looked at Ha-Hyun. "The chapel on 118th, Sienna said. 3rd pew from the back. 4 p.m. tomorrow. Nobody else in the building except one priest who owes my mother 11 favors." Ha-Hyun did not write anything down. She did not need to. "He will come," she said. "He will come," Sienna said. They took the elevator down. In the garage, Tae-Hyun stopped with his hand on her door. "Where did the chapel come from?" he said. "My mother's parish. She was baptized there. I did my confirmation there. The priest is Father Kellen. He owes her because she paid off his sister's kidney bill in '98 without ever telling anybody. That is a good room. It is a good room." He opened her door. She got in. He closed it. He walked around the front of the car and got in on his side. He sat for a second with his hands on his knees. "You are going to be at that meeting." "Yes." "No." "Yes." "Sienna." He looked up at the sedan. He saw 2 heads. "He does not know my face yet, but if I am not there tomorrow, he will spend the next 3 weeks finding it. If I am there tomorrow, he will look at me once, and he will know I am the reason his uncle went into the river, and he will have to decide in that room whether killing me is worth what killing me costs. That is not a room I can protect you in. That is the point of the room." Tae-Hyun put both hands on the wheel and closed his eyes for a full second. Then he opened them. "Then I will bring the paper," he said. "What paper?" "The paper that says what happened to his uncle in his uncle's own hand. The one Riley signed at hour 2 on the boat." Sienna felt cold along her jaw. "Riley signed a paper. He signed 3. You did not tell me. I am telling you now. What is on it? An admission of what he did to your mother's pharmacy. An admission of what he ordered done to your brother. And the name of the client who paid for the video. That client is a man in Chicago. The nephew does business with once a quarter." Sienna sat very still. "You are going to make the nephew choose between his uncle and his broker. I am going to let him choose. He will do the choosing himself when he reads the 2nd page." "That is not a fight," Sienna said. "That is a mirror." "It is a mirror." "Then bring the mirror." He turned the key. The engine did not start immediately, and he waited a beat and turned it again. The garage lights buzzed. Ash was already outside, at the top of the ramp, one shoulder against a pillar. Sienna's phone lit on her thigh. It was Priya. She read the message twice. She read it 3 times. She put the phone face down on her leg. "Tae-Hyun." "Yes." "My mother is asking for you." "For me?" "She wants you at her bedside tonight." "Why?" She did not say. He was quiet. Then he said, "I will be there at 7. 6. 6. They drove out of the garage into a Tuesday afternoon that had turned bright and cold. Somewhere at a coffee shop window 2 blocks away, a 23-year-old with red hair was standing up and dropping a paper cup into a bin and walking out into the same afternoon. Somewhere on I-77, an Aunt Sienna had not spoken to in 9 months was loading a suitcase into a trunk. Somewhere in a chapel on 118th, a priest was locking a side door and thinking about a woman named Delilah who had once paid for a kidney. And somewhere on the 8th floor of the Sloane, a mother was practicing a sentence she would say at 6. Sienna drove. Taehyun watched the mirror. The car in the mirror was Ash, and behind Ash was nothing yet. And Sienna knew that the nothing was where the third point was going to come from. And she gripped the wheel a little tighter and did not say it. She did not need to say it. He knew. At the light on 108th, he turned his head and looked at her. You are doing the thing you said you would do. What thing? Renewing. She did not look at him. She looked at the light. The light turned green and she drove through it, and she said, I renew every hour today. Ask me again at 7. He did not smile, but the corner of his mouth did what it did when the joke landed, and he faced forward, and the car went home. 6 o'clock came at the pace of a slow drum. Sienna parked the new car in the residence garage, went up in the one-button elevator, and changed into the black wool dress her mother had chosen for her 25th birthday, the one with the small covered buttons that Delilah could count on the back of a hand. She pinned her afro back with the 2 clips her mother had given her at 16. She checked her jaw in the mirror once, tilted her chin the way Delilah tilted hers at church, and stopped checking. Taehyun waited by the door in the charcoal suit with the new crease at the knee. He held a small tin in his palm, not wrapped, not hidden, just a tin. What is that? She said. Pears, he said. She looked at him. He looked back. She understood before he said the name. Sunmise, he said. Preserved. Not from Seoul. From a woman in Bayside who learned from Sunmi's cousin. I keep 3 tins. I have not opened one in 11 years. Are we opening one tonight? Your mother is. They took the service elevator at the Sloane because the front desk had learned Sienna's face, and Sienna did not want the face learning tonight. Priya was on the door of 812 with a chart she did not need to read. She nodded at Taehyun the way a nurse nods at a father who is on time. Delilah was sitting up. The head of the bed had been raised without a call button. Priya had done it 2 minutes before. The scarf on her head was the blue one, not the pink one. That was a decision. Come here, Delilah said. She said it to him. He crossed the room and sat in the chair on the right side of the bed. He did not fold his hands. He put them flat on his knees, palms down, the way a child sits at a piano bench for the first time. Show me your left hand, Delilah said. He turned the wrist up. The tattoo was covered by the cuff. She did not touch the cuff. She touched the tendon that runs from the base of the thumb to the wrist, pressed there once, and let go. Still soft, she said. You said keep it soft. I said a lot of things to an 8-year-old. Most of them were wrong. That one was not. He put the tin on the tray table between them. She opened it with the small hooked fingernail of her thumb, the same fingernail she used to open peanut brittle for Elijah. The smell came up warm and clean, sweet at the front, faintly bitter at the back where the cinnamon lived. Delilah closed her eyes for one breath. Sunmi did the bitter part on purpose, she said, to keep the men from eating them all before dinner. She told me it was so the pairs would remember what they were. That too. Sienna stayed by the door. She was not part of this room right now, and she had the sense to know it. She watched her mother lift a pear slice with the tin's small fork and put it in Taehyun's mouth like communion. He chewed once. His throat moved. He did not look at Sienna. He did not need to. You paid for her funeral, Delilah said. Not a question. I paid for the plot. My cousin paid for the stone. Good. A stone should come from blood. Yes. You know what I am asking now. You are asking if I will bury you, he said. The answer is yes. In the plot next to my mother if you would like, or in Charlotte with your sister, or in Harlem where you raised them. Whatever you say tonight I will do without asking again. Sienna's hand went to the doorframe. Delilah did not look at her. Charlotte, Delilah said, next to Reggie. He was a fool and I loved him. My sister will fight you on the stone. Let her win the stone. Win the plot. Yes. Now the other thing. He waited. My girl is not a piano, Delilah said. You cannot tune her by pressing her keys in the right order. If you try, she will crack and take your hand with her. Do you understand this? I understood it in the hallway 2 years ago. Then say the sentence you owe her mother. He turned in the chair, the whole body, not just the head. He looked at Sienna the way he had looked at the window on the 8th floor, the night she carried out $440 in tips and did not know he existed. Then he said the sentence, "I will not be the reason she is smaller." Delilah nodded once. She lifted a pear slice with the fork and held it out to her daughter. "Come eat, baby." Sienna crossed the room. The dress made no sound. She took the fork. She ate the pear. It tasted like a kitchen she had never been in, and somehow remembered anyway. They stayed until 7:40. Delilah made Taehyun tell her 3 things about his mother he had never told anyone, and he told her, and one of them made Delilah laugh, a laugh she had not made since before the 2nd round of chemo. Sienna did not cry. She had promised herself that in the elevator. She kept the promise. On the way out, Priya slipped Sienna a note in the corridor. Not paper, a voice memo she had recorded on her own phone from the door of 812 while pretending to chart. Delilah's voice. 51 seconds. Sienna did not play it. She saved it in a folder labeled with a single letter and put the phone away. The sedan was at the ramp. Ash was not driving. Ha-hyun was. Sienna got into the back, and Taehyun got in beside her, and Ha-hyun pulled into traffic without a word. "Where is Ash?" Sienna said. "With the boy," Ha-hyun said. "Not the nephew. Your brother. He is walking home from the second half of a movie he chose because a girl from his English class asked him to. He does not know Ash is there. Ash is 50 yards behind him and 1 block west." Priya. "With your mother until 3. Then Marisol, who was Sunmi's neighbor's daughter's roommate at nursing school, vetted twice." Sienna let her head tilt back against the seat. "The Queen's too," she said. "Refused the job 40 minutes ago," Ha-hyun said. "The nephew doubled the offer at 9:10, and they refused a second time. I bought their refusal at 9:04, with a promise concerning a cousin in Rikers whose case comes up in March. They believe I can keep that promise, because I can keep that promise. So he walks into the chapel alone tomorrow. He walks in alone or he walks in with hotel bellman he pays in cash off the sidewalk. Either way, no professionals. He is a boy with his uncle's mouth and no army." Sienna turned her face to the window. The city was doing its Tuesday thing, unaware. She thought about a boy she had never met sitting in a hotel bar that belonged to her husband, ordering a drink he could not afford, keeping his cap on because the light was bright. "Ha-hyun." "Yes. Would you have taken this meeting tomorrow? In my place?" Ha-hyun's eyes found hers in the mirror. There was a long pause that was not hesitation. It was respect for the question. "No," she said. "I would have taken it in a garage. You are taking it in a church because you are still your mother's daughter. I am counting that as an asset." "Good," Sienna said. "Count it." They did not speak the rest of the way home. She slept 4 hours. She woke at 3:51, which was a minute past the hour she had used to hate, and lay listening to the East River move against something metal she could not see. Taehyun was in the room 2 doors down. She knew because the panel by the bed had a small green thread of light that meant an occupied signature within 20 feet, and the thread was steady. She did not go to him. He did not come to her. The renewal she had promised at 7 had happened at 7. She was renewing again, silently, for 4 in the morning. She would renew again at 8. She did not need him in the room to do it. At 6, she made coffee. She made it in the small pot her mother had given her when she left the walk-up, the one with the burned handle. Taehyun found her in the kitchen in a t-shirt and jeans and no shoes and did not comment on any of it. He poured his own cup. He took it black. He drank standing. "V is on the road," he said. "Since when?" 4:11. She left earlier than she said. She will be at the Sloan by 3:30. Your mother knows. Your mother said, and I am quoting, "Tell that girl to stop for gas in Fredericksburg, or I will haunt her exit ramp." Sienna laughed. It surprised her. It surprised him. He allowed a small movement at the corner of the mouth that on him counted as a full grin. "Tell V the chapel is at 4. V already knows the chapel is at 4. She said she will be in the 5th pew. She said if I try to keep her out of the 5th pew, she will find a way." That is the 2nd time somebody has said, "find a way" to you in 24 hours. "Third," he said, "your mother said it last night in a different sentence. Then, behave." "Yes, ma'am." Kellen called at 10. The bishop had cleared the chapel from 3:45 until 5. The confessional booth on the left had a jammed latch that Kellen had chosen not to fix. The third pew from the back on the west side had a hymnal with a torn spine. The tier was one of Kellen's small tells for a room he trusted. He mentioned all three things and then said, "Your mother stitched my sister's kidney into me across a phone line from a hospital in Charlotte in 1998, and I have been trying to pay her back for 27 years, and she has refused to let me. You bringing this to my church is the closest I have come. Do not make me a fool in it." "I will not," Sienna said. "Bring the tall one," Kellen said, "but leave him in the vestibule until I nod." "Yes, Father." At 2:45 she dressed. A camel coat, jeans, the turtleneck, the 2 clips, the koi charm in the secret pocket. She wrote a note on a receipt in her jacket and slid it into the same pocket. The note said one word. She did not show it to anyone. At 3:50, she and Taehyun stood on the sidewalk of 118th, between Lenox and 5th. The chapel was small, brick, the door propped with a wedge. Ash was across the street with his back to a hydrant reading a paperback that Sienna recognized as one she had left in the lounge of the 8th floor of the Sloan. Ha-Iwan was in the sedan, with the window down 2 inches and a phone flat on her thigh. "You go in first," Sienna said. "Second pew from the front. Do not turn around when I come in. Do not turn around when he comes in. When I say your name, you turn. When do you say my name?" "When it is time." He nodded. He kissed the top of her head, the first time in the pipeline of the day he had touched her, and went in. At 3:58, the nephew came around the corner from Lenox. He was walking alone. No cap now. He wanted the room to see his face. The hair was the color the ledger had said. His mouth was Riley's. His eyes were not. His eyes were his mother's. Whoever she was, and she had loved him. Sienna knew this from 10 feet away. "Callum," she said. Not a question. He stopped. "Ma'am," he said, "Belfast in the vowel. Come inside. Third pew from the back, west side. There is a torn hymnal on the seat. Move it to your lap." She turned and walked in, without waiting to see whether he would follow. He followed. That was the first exchange of the room. She sat in the third pew, west side, and picked up the torn hymnal and put it in her own lap. He sat on the far end of the same pew, 6 feet between them. Taehyun's shoulders in the second pew from the front did not move. Kellen was up by the altar polishing something that did not need polishing. "I'm sorry about your mother," Sienna said. She said it into the hymnal. Callum did not answer for 4 seconds. "How did you know she's the dead one?" he said. "Because you kept your cap on all day yesterday, and you took it off to walk in here. Boys keep the cap for the father, they take it off for the mother." He looked at the hymnal in her lap, then at the ceiling, then at his own hands. "Uncle Marcus was not a good man," he said. "I know. He raised me for 6 years after she went. I know that too. He put a boy on his knees in a garage for money. He did, my brother." Callum's jaw did a small thing. "I came here to find who did him," he said. "I was told a Korean and a black girl. I did not know it was the wife. I did not know there was a wife. There is a wife. Are you her?" "I am." He nodded. He was very young. "I paid 2 men in Queens $3,000 a night," he said. "They took the money and gave it back 4 hours ago. They said a lawyer with a scar told them to give it back. That is accurate. And you brought me to a church. I brought you to a room where the priest owes my mother 11 favors, and where the confessional booth on the left has a broken latch, and where the third pew has a torn hymnal in it. I brought you to a room where nothing in it is an accident. I did that to show you a fact." "What fact?" "That I could have brought you to a garage." He looked at the altar. Kellen did not lift his head. "So what do you want?" Callum said. Small voice now. Sienna took the receipt out of her secret pocket. She unfolded it. She put it on the bench between them without pushing it toward him. The one word on the paper was, home. "Go home," she said. "Belfast. You have a sister in Derry. Her name is Aoife. She has a daughter now, 6 weeks old. You have not met the daughter. I will pay for the ticket. First class if you want, coach if you have pride. I will pay for a year of rent on a flat that Aoife picks. I will pay for 1 course at a technical school of your choosing. You will not see me again. You will not see him. Your uncle's business dies with him. You inherit the name. You do not inherit the debts, the enemies, or the men. If any of them come for you in Belfast, You send one word to a number my lawyer will hand you at the door of this church, and the man who came for you will not come again. You have my word on that, and my mother's name behind the word. Why? Because you have your mother's eyes, and you are 19 months out of the worst year of your life. Because I know what 19 months looks like. Because if I were you, and I were sitting in this pew, I would want somebody to say home to me, and mean it. Because I am tired of 8th floor garages. Because I am my mother's daughter, and my mother taught piano in a foreign country to a boy she did not know for free, and I have been trying to figure out what to do with an inheritance like that since Sunday. This is what I am doing with it. Take it or do not. You have until the priest finishes polishing that chalice. Kellen slowed down. He did not stop. He gave the boy exactly the time the boy needed. Callum stared at the paper. He picked it up with 2 fingers, the way she had picked up an envelope in a hallway 1,000 years ago. He folded it in quarters. He put it in the inside pocket of his jacket, the one with a zipper. He noticed his own hands were shaking, and he stopped noticing. Aoife hates me, he said. Aoife wrote you 3 letters this year, Sienna said. You did not open them. I know because Ha-Young-wen read your mail through your building super, who owes a man who owes her. Aoife does not hate you. Aoife is furious with you, which is a form of love that Uncle Marcus never made room for. Go find out the difference. He nodded. Once. Then again. Then his shoulders dropped an inch and did not come back up. Ma'am? He said. Yes. The broker. In Chicago. He is not your problem. He was your uncle's problem. He is now my husband's problem. He will not be a problem the day after tomorrow. You do not know his name. You have never known his name. You will forget the fact that a name existed by the time you land at Belfast International. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am. Say the sentence. I do not know his name. Good. Kellen set the chalice down. He turned. He walked to the pew and stood at the aisle. Callum stood without being told. Kellen put a hand on his shoulder and walked him to the front door of the chapel and out into 118th Street, where a car Sienna did not recognize was already waiting with the door open. Driven by a woman she had never seen, who nodded once at Kellen and pulled away with the boy in the back seat looking at his own hands. Sienna sat in the pew. She did not turn. Tai-Hyun, she said, loud enough for the second row. He turned. She lifted her hand off the torn hymnal and let it hang over the top of the third pew. He rose, walked back, sat next to her, and put his hand into hers. Palm to palm, nothing between them. That is what you brought me for, she said. That is what you brought me for, he corrected. Semantics. Yes. Kellen came back down the aisle. He did not sit. He stood at the end of the pew and looked at both of them, and did what a priest does when he wants a thing said out loud and cannot say it himself. Delilah asked me to bless it, he said, in her voice, from the 812. And she said she would forgive me for doing it out of order and out of tradition, and outside a stole and outside a book, because the woman who bought her sister a kidney does not need paperwork to bless a marriage. She did not, Sienna said. She did. She said, do it right now, Michael, while my girl is still holding his hand in your building. Give me your rings. We do not have rings. Kellen smiled without moving his face. I brought 2, he said. He held out his palm. 2 thin bands of yellow gold, old, scuffed. His parents. He said their names. He put one in Taehyun's palm and one in Sienna's. He spoke 7 sentences that were not in any book. He said them in English and in the small Latin he used for people he loved. He did not say obey. He said tend. He said keep. He said no. Taehyun's hand did not shake when he slid the ring onto her finger. Hers did shake, once, and she let it. They said the words that Kellen asked them to say. They said them once. Kellen asked once, quietly, whether she wanted to say indefinite, and she smiled at him, because he had read the contract she rewrote in a room he had never seen. Renewable by her alone, she said. Renewable by her alone, Kellen repeated. So blessed. She stood. She walked out of the chapel with her husband's hand in hers, and the koi charm in the secret pocket, and her mother's blessing carried by a priest who owed her mother a kidney. Ash was already at the car with the door open. Ha-In was smiling with only the left corner of her mouth, which was the largest smile Sienna had ever seen from her. They did not go home. They went to the Sloan. Delilah was awake. V was in the chair. V had driven the last 100 miles at 82. and she was going to hear about it from her sister, and she did not care. Elijah was on the windowsill, eating a bag of pretzels he had bought from the gift shop. Priya was at the door in her regular clothes, because her shift had ended and she had not left. Sienna walked in with her left hand at her side and did not hide the ring. Delilah saw it before the door closed. "Michael did it," Delilah said. "Michael did it, Mama. Come here." Sienna went. Delilah took her daughter's left hand in both of her thin hands and pressed the ring into the skin the way a woman presses a seal into wax. Then she took Taehyun's left hand and did the same. She did not speak. She did not need to. V was crying without sound and would deny it later. Elijah was pretending to eat a pretzel he had already finished. "Boy," Delilah said to Elijah. "Ma'am, come tell your sister what you told me at 7 this morning on the phone." Elijah slid off the windowsill. He was 3 inches taller than Sienna. He looked at his shoes. He looked at Taehyun. He looked at Sienna. "I told her," he said, "that if he treats you right, I will call him Hyung. If he doesn't, I will find a way." "Third time," Sienna said to Taehyun. "I am counting," Taehyun said. Elijah put his hand out. Taehyun took it. The handshake was too long for a handshake and too short for anything else. Elijah went back to the windowsill and finished a pretzel that no longer existed. V cleared her throat. "I drove 12 hours to meet a Korean gangster my sister decided to marry," she said, "and I approve. On the record, in writing, laminated." Taehyun reached inside his jacket and produced a small laminated card he had been carrying since the drive to the chapel. V read it and laughed the loud laugh she had not laughed in 9 months of silence with her niece. The card said, "V. Brooks approves." "He is a keeper," V said. "He is," Delilah said. She was watching her daughter's face. Her daughter's face was the face she had been waiting to see since 1994, and she was going to hold it for 1 full minute, and then she was going to close her eyes, because she had earned a nap. Sienna sat on the edge of the bed. She kept her mother's hand. "Mama?" "Yes, baby." "Sunmi's pears." "Yes. I want to learn to make them." "I will teach you tomorrow. If tomorrow doesn't come, ask Marisol." Marisol's mother knew Sunmi's cousin. "It is in the family." "Yes, ma'am." Delilah closed her eyes. V moved to the chair on the other side of the bed and took the other hand. Priya turned the lights down 1 notch from the wall. Ash stood in the corridor with his back to the doorframe, not looking in, hearing everything. Ha-Kyun was in the parking garage on a phone with a man in Chicago who did not know his life had 1 more day. Elijah slid off the windowsill again. He walked to Sienna and stood behind her, put both hands on her shoulders, and rested his chin on the top of her head, the way he used to, when he was 7 and she was 15, and the apartment was cold. He did not say anything. He did not need to. Taehyun stood at the foot of the bed. He put his left hand on Delilah's ankle through the blanket, where the tendon of the foot met the shin, and pressed there once the way she had pressed the tendon of his wrist 12 hours earlier. He did not say a word. The room held. Outside, the light in 812 went the color it goes when the day understands it is nearly done and refuses to hurry. Delilah was breathing. She would breathe for weeks yet, long enough to teach her daughter the pairs, long enough to hear Elijah call the tall one Hyung twice, without irony, on 2 separate Thursdays, before she went. Right now was this room. Sienna turned her head, very slightly, and looked at her husband. She did the thing at the corner of the mouth that on her counted as everything. "Ask me again at 7, she said. He looked at the wall clock. It was 6:52. "I will wait," he said. "At 7 exactly," he asked her. She said yes. She would say yes at 8, and at midnight, and at 4 in the morning when the river moved against something metal she could not see. Yes on the morning her mother did not wake up. Yes on the afternoon V finally sat down at the piano in the empty room of the penthouse and played, badly, the first 8 bars of a lesson she had watched her sister give a boy in 1994. She said yes because she had put the key inside the cage herself, and every hour she chose again to leave it there. She had been home since the hallway. She had just needed 26 years to notice. The ring was warm. The hand was warm. She stayed. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever told a lie to survive a night, only to find the lie was already someone else's truth, waiting years for you to speak it? Have you ever owed a debt of honor you didn't know had your name on it since childhood? And if a gilded cage opened its door, would you walk out? Or would you keep the key on your side of the bars? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about loyalty, hidden debts of honor, and love that begins as a lie, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel